office and between the ministry and statistical office and so on and so forth. So in this next session, session 11, we will be having discussions on national practices and coordination on ICT measurement. So for this session, we have actually 4 speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. SP Magtagtay. Of course, you have you know SP very well by this time. Our second speaker will be Dr. Judith Wainternes. And the third will be Mr. Philip Varela from Philippines. And the fourth one will be Mr. Johnny Waika from Fiji. So now I would like to invite SP to give you the roles of the different stakeholders in collecting as well as on measurement of ICT indicators. So SP, please.
Thank you very much, Ami, and good morning, everyone. This will be the last presentation for myself for this workshop, so bear with me. Okay, so this morning I'm going to present to you a short overview of national coordination among different stakeholders in a country. Maybe some of you are already practicing this or very familiar with the topic, but this is provided to you for those that are still planning or looking into this area of establishing a mechanism in your respective countries. So in the manual, we have a section that looks at national coordination system and mechanisms that could be put in place in a country. And this is a diagram or a figure that is available in the handbook that illustrates the different stakeholders in the ICT statistics system. So if you look at in page, I think page 17 of the manual, you will have the same information. So I think in every country you have the sector ministries in different areas. You have the national regulatory authorities and you have the national statistics offices. All of these statistics producers and users are very important agencies that could play a role in improving the ICT statistics in the country. So for example, if you have the ICT ministry or whatever you call it in your country, normally they are the main users of ICT statistics. They use the ICT statistics in making their policies and in targeting areas where improvements are needed. So they are playing a very important role, and this role should be communicated with other agencies involved in the production of ICT statistics. So you also have the national regulatory authorities, and they play a very important role because they are the ones compiling the data on telecom administrative records. Normally they are the ones who has the mandate over the operators or the ISPs to produce this data because they are indicated in most cases in the different licenses that they give to the operators and ISPs. The national statistics system, and this is, I think we've discussed this many times already since Monday, they play a very important role because they are mandated by the law to collect official statistics and disseminate in the country and internationally. And this does not apply to only, of course, population statistics and other type of statistics that NSO collect, but they also could play a very important role in terms of collecting ICT statistics, mainly on, for us, what we discussed on Tuesday on ICT household statistics. So these 3 main agencies play a very important role in the production of ICT statistics. And it's very important that these 3 agencies coordinate and talk to each other in identifying the areas where ICT statistics are lacking or areas where there's demand for ICT statistics from users. And when I talk about users, not only ICT sector ministry is the main user of information, but you also have the academia and consultants who use the information that a statistical agency or a national regulatory agency produces. But also you have the media, the journalists, and the general public who wants to know what is happening in the area of ICT. There are other private users such as the ICT industry and other businesses that requires information in the sector. And of course, we don't forget the international organizations that collect the data to make international comparison of ICT information. And the most important of all of all these players in the system of ICT statistics are the information providers. They are, of course, what we mentioned earlier, the operators, the individuals and households and businesses. For example, for other type of statistics, you also have governments, schools, and other institutions where ICT statistics could be collected. So this is the system that normally exists in a country, and it is very important that all these players talk to each other in first identifying the needs and in disseminating and providing the information. So why is national coordination on ICT statistics important and necessary or needed? So ICT statistics are cross-cutting and therefore involve many stakeholders with different competencies and skills. So for example, I'm taking the example of the national regulatory authorities, the ministries, and the National Statistics Office. So the National Statistics Office has its first the mandate to collect official statistics on usage of ICTs, but it also has a competency in terms of implementing statistical processes, sampling. They have the sample that is necessary for the conduct of an official survey, and at the same time they are the repository and has the legal obligation to disseminate the data. So it is very important that if a regulator, for example, or ministry wants to conduct a survey, that they involve the National Statistics Office in terms of implementing the user survey. We also have an important role in terms of, these agencies that have a very important role in ensuring that the limited resources in your country are used efficiently. So we don't want a regulatory agency collecting usage statistics while the NSO is also collecting usage statistics in their existing household surveys. So we want to avoid any duplication of effort and to ensure that the resources are used efficiently. And of course, coordination is important because in the end, what we want to achieve is high quality official statistics that are comparable and could be compared with other countries. So there are many coordination mechanisms that exist in countries. You have national coordination bodies. I think this is, in some countries, this is a mechanism that exists already, not just on ICT statistics, but on other areas where different stakeholders are involved in terms of the usage and production of statistics. You can also have an inter-institutional committees and working groups. So these are more informal setup where you can have you can invite the different stakeholders in the country to form a group where you can exchange ideas and information related to the production and dissemination of ICT statistics. This is also, there's also national observatories. In some countries, this is more of a formal mechanism that they put in place where the different stakeholders can not just discuss the need and the way they can collect ICT statistics, but they also, this is also a place where all ICT statistics are kept and they are the ones disseminating them to the wider public. So there are other mechanisms that may be formed or that already exist in countries. So here I'm mentioning some of the national coordination bodies, like in the previous slide. And like, for example, the National Statistics Commissions or committees, they can be more official framework where they are established and supported by statistical law. In some countries, coordination is usually done and led by the National Statistics Office, where they can have satellite counterparts in other sector ministries. And this exists not just in the area of ICT statistics, but it is also in other areas such as health, education, for example, employment and agriculture. And you can have these groups to establish methodologies, for example, to define the indicators that you would need in terms of your policy making needs coming from the sector ministries. I took here an example of the Philippines because this is the one I know very well, and this is also one of the examples we put in the manual. You also have other examples, and I think our colleagues from the Philippines will talk about this later. And in particular, the Interagency Committee on ICT Statistics. So I'm not going to give you very detailed information here, but we'll hear the information from our colleague later on. So like what I mentioned, you can have a less formal or less institutionalized forms of collaboration among data producing agencies. The inter-institutional working groups with clear defined responsibilities for establishing technical standards, for example, for the data collection and analysis, the dissemination of findings. And what is important is that in this coordination mechanisms or working groups or bodies, whatever you want to call it, you bring a representative from each agency and not just the NSOs and the NRAs, but also the ministries. Or you can have other representatives such as, for example, other users of the data. And national observatories, this is the example we took here. This example is in Spain. I don't know if they changed the name already, but their objective is really to centralize, like what I mentioned, the compilation and the dissemination of ICT statistics. And usually what they do is they have a national portal that contains all the types of ICT statistics. So this includes different areas that you can have there: telecom, you can have households, businesses, ICT in businesses, and ICT in government in countries where there's more advanced data collection in terms of those type of statistics. Of course, these national observatories and national coordination groups will require close cooperation with all data producers in the country. You don't do this once. You have to do more regular discussion and regular review in terms of ensuring that the data that you collect or the data that you disseminate are still relevant for policy making needs in your country. The national coordination is a topic that is of high focus in terms of the international discussion. For example, we had included this in the two meetings, the World Telecommunication Indicator Symposium. First one was in here in Bangkok in 2012, and then in the last World Telecom Indicator Symposium that happened in Mexico last year. And in those two symposiums or meetings, we have high-level panels which debated the importance of national coordination, and which has triggered numerous interventions and comments from participants, mainly on the issue and concern which involves the production of ICT statistics. And from those two meetings, it was recommended that countries should put in place a national coordination mechanism, and that the National Statistics Office should play an active role in terms of ensuring that these mechanisms are put in place and is working at the country level. And then one important outcome of that meeting is that countries should have ICT statistics in their national statistics development strategies. I think in many countries this is something that is already in place, but the problem is that ICT statistics is not one of the key priority areas highlighted in that strategy document. So when you go back, I think that is one assignment that you can do. You can check whether ICT statistics is part of your NSDS, and if not, you have to talk to your NSO and to the other stakeholders and ensure that this comes in terms of the next planning or in the next strategies that we will develop. And then also in that two meetings, it was recommended that the ITU should develop guidelines and models for coordination mechanisms to assist countries. And I think this is one of the reasons why we have put really in the manual and highlighted specifically that area of national coordination and provided different examples where countries can check and see what mechanism could apply best in terms of their country policy making needs and the statistical system that exists in their country. And what we do is that every time we have meetings, workshops, trainings, and events like this, we make sure that the topic of national coordination is always included, because this is the only way we can help countries and at the same time invite them to not forget that this is a very important topic in terms of ensuring the improvement and quality of ICT statistics in countries. So I have this one slide which I will probably put up later on. I will leave the time for other speakers, and then later on we can go back to this slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SB, for giving us an overview on national practices and coordination and ICT measurement. If I may suggest, can we proceed with the presentation of the other speakers, and then after everybody has spoken, we will open the floor to sharing, question and answers, and the questions faced by.
That's good that we have a plan to go for shopping. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your understanding. All right, so from general overview, we now have country practices. So the first one who will share us their experience is Dr. Judith Winternet from Australia.
So good morning everyone, and I finally actually get to face you instead of having my back turned to you while I'm talking. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about Australia and how we handle things. And I've also decided to give you some information about some of our key statistical collections that are ongoing, because you can access them all online, and they have methodological background to them. So as well as having a look at the actual statistics, you can see how we do it methodologically, and you can have a look and see if we follow international standards and international practice, but you can have a look and see how it's applied in Australia methodologically as well. And that's why I've put in a lot of links to some of our major statistical collections. So I believe these presentations will be available online. Will you set the step out? So when you look at this online, I believe this computer right here is not connected to the internet, so I can't pull them up for you. But because the links are there, when you download them from your internet connection, you'll be able to pull up all the links to the Australian Bureau of Statistics and other collections and see the methodological analysis underneath all the statistics as well as the data. And I thought that might be helpful. Okay, so as in other countries, the main agencies involved in collecting dissemination national telecommunication and IT indicators and statistics in Australia are the Australian Government, Department of Communications, that's the department that I used to belong to, and I was head of research and statistics there for a long time. The Australian Communications Management Authority, which is the regulator responsible for regulating all communications, including broadcasting and radio, as well as all forms of telecommunications, and the control of spectrum and spectrum allocation and licensing of communications players. And of course, as we've been discussing, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which is of course our National Statistical Office. So they're the three main agencies involved in production and dissemination of telecommunications statistics in Australia. There are in fact many other government agencies producing statistics and relevant data. For example, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, also a government agency. This is about regulation of the state of competition in Australia. I don't know if any of you have this kind of thing, but in terms of competitive practice in Australia, if one player wants to swallow a big fish, wants to swallow a small fish player in Australia, they actually have to provide evidence to the Australian Competition Consumer and Competition Commission. I never get to work those two words right around the right way. Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, that this will not lessen the competitive landscape in Australia, and if it does, the acquisition is stopped. The Commission actually has legislative power to maintain and increase competition in all sectors in Australia. So acquisitions of one player and another have to go through the ACCC, and the ACCC can say no. And it does quite often. And that maintains competition in all sectors because it handles all sectors, infrastructure of all kinds. For example, and that they're dealing with commercial operations, but they are the competition watchdog, and they have the power to stop purchases and acquisitions. I don't know if you have something like that in your country, but we do. And they produce a state of competition in Australia, including a state of telecommunications competition in Australia report every couple of years, and that's always very interesting, has a lot of data in it about the number of players and how many ISPs we have and all that stuff. Then we have AGMO, which is the Australian Government Information Management Office, and they control e-government operations in Australia, and they have all the statistics on citizen use of e-government operations. In Australia, almost all government operations are online, and virtually everyone uses online services, and so they produce annual statistics on the number of services of various kinds being used by citizens online through the Australian government, which I think is pretty damn good. And the last one is the one we love the most, which I don't know if you've got, but we have in Australia called the Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman. I don't know if you've had ombudsmans, but ombudsmans are people who, ombudsmen are people who, officers that handle major complaints. And the Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman produces annual statistics, in fact quarterly statistics, which are you can link if you look up TIO, Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman, in Google in Australia, you'll find quarterly statistics on a number of telecommunications related complaints and what the complaints were about and how they were resolved quarterly. And they're constantly updated. So it's about consumer complaints, the state of quality of service to consumers, and all sorts of interesting things which the TIO produce. And I think that's always very interesting. Now, each of the agencies have their specific responsibilities and roles, and for the moment I'm only talking about government statistics, and these are all federal government agencies, and they each have their own powers, and they each produce their own publications and data. And the Department of Communications, which I belong to, has the overall responsibility for policy and coordination. So my position in particular was the one that had to know everything that was going on in terms of data across the entire Australian government, and that was not particularly easy. We do not have a formal coordination mechanism. We don't have a committee. We don't have an agency for coordination. But we have very strong informal and internal links, many meetings, and very strong personal networking, and that is the basis on which coordination occurs in Australia. We do not have an enforced agency for coordination for government statistics, but we have very strong internal links, and it works, or it has done so far. We have not felt the need to set up a specific agency to force people to coordinate. We've found that it works as it does now. I wanted to put forward to you something which we think is terribly important, some principles underlying the collection and production of Australian government telecommunications data. And these are principles which are both explicit and implicit in everything that the Australian government produces. So I'll go through them quite carefully with you because I don't know if you share them, but this is the Australian government's position and this is what we do. The reason that telecommunications data is collected in Australia by any agency, by any government agency, is for domestic policy purposes. We only collect data because we think it's important for policy. We do not collect data for the sake of collecting data. We do not do that. We think that it has to have a policy relevance, otherwise it's not going to be collected, no matter how interesting it is. We leave that to academics or other private agencies. If they want to collect data on their own, we don't care, that's fine, that's wonderful. But Australian government collects data specifically for internal domestic policy. The Australian government data collections are by policy expected to be accessible to all Australian citizens. So it's not closed data. It must not be closed data. It is not secret data, and if it is, there are freedom of information provisions which Australian citizens can ask for data. So data is not closed, it is open, and it must be accessible. Data collections are expected to be published and to be available online and for free. Data provision is free and it's online and it's universally accessible. In fact, it's globally accessible once it's online. And data supplied to the RTU and other international organisations is the same as that produced and published for Australian citizens. It's based on existing publicly available sources and it's not specially produced or collected. What we give the ITU, what we give any international organisation is exactly what the Australian citizens know about already. We don't give the ITU anything different or separate, only what we already have and Australian citizens know about. Now, I don't know if other countries share these principles, but these are the Australian government's principles in terms of communications data, both internally and externally, and I think they're quite important, so I thought I'd put them up. Okay, in terms of methodology and statistical accuracy and all the things we've been talking about, quality of data, the Australian Government Bureau of Statistics is the leading agency, and I can tell you that no government data collection will be put online without the endorsement of the ABS. Whether the ABS produced it or not, no Australian government agency will put data online for Australian public and international consumption without the endorsement of the ABS. They may not have produced it, but they have gone through it and they have agreed with it. They have perhaps advised on the methodology or they have checked the methodology afterwards, but they will not be put up unless the ABS says okay. So that's how we achieve a kind of methodological consistency, by passing things through the ABS. But as well as I showed you, a lot of other agencies producing data, but they will all somehow get through the ABS as well. The ABS, for example, in terms, just to elaborate, the ABS, for example, in terms of all Australian government surveying from any department on any subject at all, from education to health to community services to anything else, transport, whatever, every single survey that involves more than 500 people has to be checked and approved in terms of methodology by the ABS before it starts. So the methodology is okay before it starts, and that's a requirement. So the ABS has a very strong hold on methodological matters in Australia, and that's why it's such a good agency. Actually, it's a very good agency. But the ABS itself produces some wonderful collections, and they're the ones that I'm going to give you the links to, and I'll tell you a little bit about as we go along. I know I sound as if I'm bragging, but they are damn good collections, and I've been involved constantly in making them better, so that's why I'm so proud of it. The very first one, which is the most precious collection we have, is the Internet Activity Survey, which is a 6-monthly survey of all internet service providers in Australia, which provides something almost unique in the world, also a measure of download data amounts every 6 months in Australia. And I've given you the link there. When you get home or can look at this presentation online, you can click into the latest one, which was released only last week, October 7th. And I'm going to give you a look at a couple of others. The Household Use of IT Survey, that's an ABS survey every 2 years, there's the link. The Business Use of IT Survey, which actually has many forms. It's actually 2 years, and then every year there's an update. And so there are the links to it. So there are separate surveys for household and business, and they're very extensive and damn fine. Here's a media release for the Internet Activity Survey, which was released last week, and it shows you what Internet activity in Australia is like. This is just the front page media release. This is not the data. You get the data in Excel spreadsheets, all the detail, and you get the methodology and everything else. If you click on the link, this is just the media release. As you see, Australians downloaded nearly 1 million, whatever it was, I can't even say terabytes, or 1 exabyte of data in the 6 months into June of this year. I'll just leave you to rest. There's the dominance of broadband, of course, in Australia, and continuing there's the dominance of greater and greater extent of wireless broadband in Australia. There's the last mobile wireless reference at the bottom. So when you look at, when you click on the link to look at the full survey with all the methodology, this is just the media release. I thought I'd give you a taste of what it was, and that was last week. So publications of interest from some of the other organisations as well. ACMA, the Communications Management Authority, the Communications Report, which is an annual report, and that tells you a lot about broadcasting as well as telephones, mobile phones, and as well as the internet. Then there are lots of individual research reports that ACMA does, including consumer attitudes towards all sorts of things, online, the use of social media, all sorts of interesting statistics and research there. Again, links to it. And my favourite telecommunication industry officer, which tells you all about the complaints. And there are the statistics, the quarterly statistics online for you, the link to it. And my own department, quite a lot of work, policy-related work that we did on children's cyber safety. And I developed these particular reports myself and conducted surveys, and the ABS approved them. And so all those surveys on children's use of the internet and children's cyber safety issues are at that link. So finally, some ongoing challenges. The need for coordination, as I said to you, we don't have a coordinating authority or a formal mechanism or a committee or anything like that. But the need for coordination is constant, and so that's why I say internal vigilance is required. There are always departments popping their heads up wanting to do something that I used to have to say, well, wait a minute, just wait a minute, careful. So the need coordination is ongoing. You never just assume that it's already been established. You just have to keep on plugging away at it, day by day, constantly. It's not a one-off thing. As you see, financial resourcing issues, as you see, the ABS puts a huge amount of effort into these massive surveys and online stuff. That takes money, that takes resources. And so, although in the National Statistics Plan, communication statistics of all kinds are seen as fundamental and part of basic economic statistical collections, so they don't have there's no question mark over them. They are seen as fundamental to the Australian statistical framework. Nonetheless, there are always resourcing issues. There are always questions about whether they can do, let's say, do it less frequently or slightly less of it, or smaller surveys, or that kind of thing. So you're constantly battling the financial and resource issues, and I think that's probably a universal experience, and it is in Australia as well. Another challenge is capturing new developments. Of course, technology is changing all the time, and maintaining the existing collections is hard, and maintaining quality, of course, is always a challenge. capturing new things is also something that's necessary. And over the past months in Australia, probably globally, with things like the Edward Snowden revelations about security agents spying on citizens and big data being used as a form of analysis by security agencies and all that kind of thing. The privacy and security of personal information, the use of social media, that kind of thing has been very much just for in Australian public opinion. And so there's constant demands to the poor ABS about what do we know about, how many times security agencies are snooping on us, that kind of question. And the ABS hasn't got anything like that kind of information, nor could it develop a survey, I think, to ask that. So all of these new developments about technology are always ending up being a question about, do we have data on it? Do we have data on it? And so we're constantly struggling to capture new developments. So children's cyber safety was a big thing in Australia, it still is. Children accessing inappropriate material is one thing, but children being targeted for fraud and scams online or through their mobile phones, that kind of thing, how to stop it, how many children experience it. Bullying online through social media, that was a big problem in Australia. Many children were suiciding and self-harming because of online bullying, but that resulted in the Australian government having to worry about what data we have about online bullying and what can we do to so on and so forth. All these things to do with new developments, new happenings online, and there's always a need for data on that. So capturing the new developments and seeing whether they are major things that need new statistical collections is always an issue, and always constantly watching for the new things. Maintaining quality, yes, that's always an ongoing issue. It never stops. The ABS, even the saintly, perfect ABS has quality issues sometimes. And most recently, about a week, 2 weeks ago, a big phenomenon in Australia was to questioning the ABS unemployment statistics, the holy grail of unemployment statistics. Were they right? Were they wrong? Was something wrong with them? The whole of Australia went into meltdown because the ABS unemployment statistics were wrong. So maintaining quality is very serious, an issue even for a very brilliant agency like the ABS. Policy complexity. Now this is an interesting one. The particular issue in Australia is NBN policy, National Broadband Network Policy, because we've had two different governments. One government which was thrown out of office last year had a very big broadband policy, and the more recent government that came into power last year has a very much smaller broadband policy. And maintaining kind of interest in what it is we're supposed to be collecting in regard to broadband, and whether the big policy which needed big collections is the same as the small policy which needs much smaller connections, and what happens when the policy issues change. Do you still maintain the same kind of emphasis in collections? And as I said, data collections in Australia are determined by internal policy needs, absolutely. So if the policy changes, then sometimes the data collection has to change too, and that's interesting when for breaks in series, for example, which we've had sometimes, breaks in series, and you get a whole 5 years of something and then suddenly it disappears and becomes something else completely, and breaks in series. The statisticians know about breaks in series. Finally, this is something I have mentioned before, and the ABS is incredibly aware of, respondent burden, and you might know about this as well. Communications companies hate being pestered for data, even though the ABS and the Australian government has legal requirements to provide it. The communications companies hate it. So do individual citizens. And as we were saying yesterday, people just sometimes say no, even though there is a legal requirement to provide the data. They say no. So the ABS and other agencies are incredibly aware of respondent burden. Don't ask too many questions. Don't ask unnecessary questions. Don't ask too often. Be careful, because if you push demands onto the population and onto your commercial sector too much, they will simply refuse, because that is not their primary purpose. We have to keep on remembering that commercial organisations, the primary purpose of commercial organisations is not to give data to government for anybody else. It's to make money for their shareholders. And the primary purpose of Australian citizens is not to give data to the ABS, but just to have a decent life and so on and so forth. So respondent burden is something that we all have to be really, really concerned about, and I know that we are in Australia. We actually stop ourselves from asking things. We don't run surveys often, or we run smaller surveys specifically because we're concerned about respondent burden. So I recommend that to you as well. There we are. That's me, and if you need to contact me, I'm very happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for sharing the Australian experience and for the very interesting and useful and comprehensive presentation. So please hold on to your questions or to your comments, okay? Just write them down first and then we'll open it later after all the speakers have already presented. So may I now call on our next speaker, Mr. Philip Varela, Director from the Department of Science and Technology in the Philippines.
Good morning, everybody. It's my turn to provide you our country experience on the activities of the Interagency Committee on ICT Statistics. I will talk about the legal basis of such interagency committee, some functions of the committee, as well as some activities. The Interagency Committee on ICT Statistics was created under the NSCB, which is short for the National Statistical Coordination Board. And this was created in 2006. The NSCB is the policy-making body on statistics. We have the National Statistics Office, which designs and implements surveys. These are the mandate of the Interagency Committee to effectively measure the impact of ICT on the various sectors of society and to monitor the progress of ICT development in the Philippines, considering the need for relevant and timely ICT statistics. And the second one is to address such concern. The Philippine statistical system has initiated various statistical development activities to compile, produce, and disseminate ICT statistics that are useful for evidence-based policymaking and development planning. The role of ICT in development has been recognized by the following, and please take note that these are the legal basis as well as the plans and the creation of the office here were done or were undertaken prior to the establishment of the Interagency Committee. So in 2000, year 2000, the government issued the e-commerce app. We also issued the National IT Plan of 2000, the Government Information System Plan, and the creation of the Commission on ICT, which became the ICT Office. The Commission on ICT, which was created in 2004, brought together agencies or people from different government agencies involved in ICTs, meaning people from the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, people from the National Computer Center under the Ministry of Science and Technology, people from the Office of the President working on communications as well. This is the composition of the Interagency Committee on ICT Statistics. The chair is the executive director or representative. The representative is me. The Vice Chair is the Director of the Office of Policy Research and E-Commerce Office under the Department of Trade and Industry. Our members are the National Statistical Coordination Board, which actually became the Philippine Statistics Authority just last year. The National Economic and Development Authority, which is actually the mother agency of NSCB. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, that's the central bank. The National Telecommunications Commission, that's the National Regulatory Agency for Telecoms. IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, this is an umbrella association of industry players involved in IT and business process management. The National Computer, and which is now the ICT Office. Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, which is a non-governmental organization which represents the labor sector, and the Ministry of Budget and Management, which is the management agency in government. The specific functions of the committee are as follows: to recommend policies geared towards improved generation, dissemination, and utilization of ICT statistics, including addressing the data gaps. It serves as a forum for the discussion and resolution of issues relating to ICT statistics. It formulates a national ICT statistical framework under the gambit of the Philippine Statistical Development Plan. Review the concepts, techniques, and methodologies used in the collection, processing, and reporting of ICT statistics to ensure conformity with prescribed statistical standards. Provide assistance and guidance in the regular generation of the estimates of the value of e-commerce transactions, ICT satellite accounts, and other ICT statistics. It also provides inputs to the NSCB Technical Committee on Statistical Standards and Classification in the development of standard concepts and definitions on ICT statistics and ICT classification systems. It provides direction and support in the development of an estimation methodology in the valuation of e-commerce and the compilation of satellite accounts on ICT, as well as recommended mechanisms for their institutionalization. It presents the results of and recommendations on the contribution of e-commerce, the generation of the ICT satellite accounts of the Philippine System of National Accounts to the PSA Executive Board. To monitor the overall development of ICT statistics in the country and prioritize outputs that will address the more urgent statistical concerns, such as those required to carry out the programs set forth in the Philippine Development Plan 2011-2016 and the Philippine Statistical Development Program 2011 to 2017. These are some statistical activities that we have undertaken. Review and comment on the progress made on ICT statistics, measuring ICT and gender as it brings gender dimension in ICT, particularly with the objective of deriving the digital gap between sexes, ICT services and ICT-enabled services, taking into account that the Philippines is one of the leading providers of trade-in services. To standardize the definition, scope, and coverage based on the ICT codes of ICT services and ICT-enabled services. Endorse the revised core list of ICT indicators on household ICT access and individual ICT use contained in the report. Basically, these are the core ICT indicators. And to review and endorse the recommendations proposed to improve ICT statistics, such as the inclusion of development programs on ICT statistics in the National Strategy for the Development of Statistics of the country, and to take into consideration the importance of coordination with the National Statistical System in the production and dissemination of ICT statistics, such as the setting up of institutionalization of coordination mechanisms. This would include forming some task forces if necessary. So these are the core list of ICT indicators, basically coming from the Partnership on Measuring ICT for Development. The access and infrastructure, households and individual use and access of ICT, and the business use and access of ICT. We, in consultation and in partnership with the National Statistics Office, the National Statistics Office normally designs and implements surveys to gather statistical data for these core indicators. But aside from that, our office, the ICT office, also designs and implements surveys for national government agencies and local government units for their ICT readiness. So it complements the activities of the National Statistics Office. I think that's my last slide. So there will be a presentation of the Philippine ICT Statistics Portal later on to give you an idea of the different ICT statistics available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip, for sharing your information on your coordination mechanism in the Philippines. Okay, so now I would like to invite Mr. Johnny Waika from the Telecommunications Authority of Fiji to share their experience and practices in Fiji.
Thank you. I'd like to say something from the outset. Actually, I was only asked yesterday to put something together. So I'm going to try my best not to stand in the way of your enjoying your break this morning, and also not to take away those moments that you would like to ask questions. So I'll try my best to be very fast. Actually, this is not basically on coordination in the government, but I'd like to share Fiji's experience on how we have come to have this collection of data system within our organization, which has allowed us to get more information from the industry and also respond to the ITU requests better. The overview of my presentation this morning, I'll just briefly go through the introduction phase where I show you how the market in Fiji is structured. I'll take you the consultants' work that has helped Fiji establish its monitoring and evaluation system, and also take you through the design and implementation of the system, and at least show you some of the snapshots of the system, because I don't have connectivity, otherwise I would have taken you online and show you the actual live data. As a snapshot, Fiji's market is as such: over 300 islands, more than 100 of which is inhabited, spread over a vast area, and there in itself is a challenge. We have a population up to our last census of about 837 plus thousand people, 40% in urban areas, 45% around peri-urban, and 15% in the urban areas. In the rural areas is one of the challenges for the operators to try and reach. On top of that, we have 600,000 or more tourists that visit our shores. Again, there's big need for the infrastructure, communications infrastructure, to be able to support all this. At the moment, we have one fixed line operator, voice, who provides voice and internet. There are two mobile operators. They both provide voice and internet. And there's one international carrier which also provides internet services. There's one organization that is an ISP only provider, but at the moment they are currently coming under one of the existing mobile operators. So we might see them disappearing soon. Apart from that, there is a major mobile phone reseller, a VoIP carrier, a licensed VoIP carrier, and there are 3 licensed call centers. In the regulatory frame, we have 2 regulators in the telecommunication sector. The Fiji Commerce Commission looks at the competition, they set tariff and interconnection and so forth. While Telecommunications Authority of Fiji, where I come from, looks at the service and the technical portion of the management of the telecommunication center. We also have the Consumer Council of Fiji, who looks after the consumer issues, as well as some of the consumer issues are handled by the Fiji Commerce Commission. TEF in 2012 has embarked on an open license regime. Previously, the fixed line operator cannot compete in the mobile market, and likewise vice versa. But now under the open license regime, they can. But again, there are other limiting factors in there. At the moment, TEF only has 3 engineers, 1 IT specialist, and 4 support staff. So you can just imagine that was one of the reasons why when we decided to look at monitoring and evaluating the system, the telecommunications sector, we said we have to go ICT based, otherwise it will be a laborious task to get 3 or 4 people involved in collecting data, analyzing it, and producing reports. On the statistics front, Fiji Bureau of Statistics, or our National Statistics Office, looks after the collection of all the other household, business, and the economic statistics, while TEF is specialized in the industry data. Just a quick background on our market. In 2008, Telecommunications Authority of Fiji was established to acquire and develop tools and skills, tools and resources, which will allow us to manage the transition from a monopolistic to a competitive and multi-operator stakeholder market. Previously, the players in the market were having a monopoly in their own area. There was only one mobile operator, there was only one voice fixed line operator, and no one can compete cross-sectional. So they had to open the market up so that competition can come in around 2008. It was also made to facilitate and manage the growth of this industry and to measure and optimize the impact of telecommunications reform on the broader community. Long-term goals for TEF that were set was to improve access to infrastructure, particularly in rural and outer island areas, and also to establish necessary environment for separate and diverse private sector development. So, monitoring evaluation system was thrown into our legislation, and the idea was that it has to be a successful, this successful M&E system must have evaluation and reporting back mechanism to allow wider discussions of policies that are put in place, also allow decision making based on quality data, and also to dissipate lessons learned for the decision makers so that they can make informed decisions in the future. It was also designed to inform TEF if its objectives are met. Basically, when I went back after the 2012 WTIS hit from which was held here, I gave the consultant, look, we've got these ICT indicators which we need to collect. And he turned back, this is for ITU work. We must collect data that is useful for you first. And on top of that, you can use the same data to report to ITU. So that was one of the things that we looked at when we started out our program. It has to enable examination of the impact of decisions made and also the introduction of new technologies. And also it needs to enable redesign of activities if required. And on top of that, to draw lessons learned for the future. The consultants' work, as I said, there's only a few of us in the office, so we decided it has to be an ID-based monitoring and evaluation system to facilitate data submission, and it must have information gathering, storage, and interpretation. The goals that were set for this system, it has to monitor and assess the performance of the telecom industry operators in their delivery of services to household and businesses. It also has to monitor and assess the performance of telecommunications industry operators in their delivery for rural and remote areas, to develop the capacity of TEF to sustain the progress, and to assess and monitor the contribution of the industry to the national GDP, something that our policymakers really need. Some of the key requirements in key performance indicators that were put in place. The system will measure the access, services density by market segment, service density by urban versus rural, network coverage, and service quality. It will also look at managing the scarce resources that we have, spectrum, usage, and numbering resources. To identify bottlenecks, whether it's legislation, capacity, or institutional. I mean, we have two regulators. Basically, if we are not careful, the players might go forum shopping to try and get the result that they want. Then we also wanted to look at the access and the usage of internet, and also the broad data on the industry revenue. TEF, through its legislation, has got the power to collect information. And we were willing to wage this, but we decided this is not the way to go. We also have something that limits us from disclosing collected information, which actually addressed one of the concerns of the operators. Basically, our M&E system is designed as such. Our inputs come from operators and also the consolidated data from the ministry, which we will be deriving through the National Statistics Office. And then we have opened it up that there will come a time when we have other data inputs required to be put into our system so that we can also analyze it better. The outputs, we have something for the viewing, for the public to view, and that is the same data that we will be forwarding to ITU. There's a set of data which only TEF management will see. Because of the confidentiality of the data, we cannot put it in public. Likewise, the ministry, they have certain accesses to certain of our data. As and when they require, we will release to them. And then we also went on to identify who to provide us data and where we will be giving the data to. Basically, all the orange boxes are TEF's responsibilities. And at the top, we report to ministry, who then passes the aggregated data up to ITU and other regional bodies that require them. Our approach, basically consultation, and consultation. Initially, one-on-one with its stakeholders to introduce the M&E project. We showed them what their obligations are. They asked, they raised their concerns, and then we also showed them what the system will offer in return. Just to tell you something, one of the operators this morning, even before we sent out the request to provide information, one of the operators has already submitted their quarterly data for July to September. I've just received the confirmation this morning, so I believe this because we consulted with them and kept them in the loop initially, they are now freely providing the data, easily providing the data without us having to chase after it. And after the system was designed and the forms were drawn up, we sent it again to them, and then we called them in and asked them, what is available now? If it's not available now, what cost will it be to produce it? And if there are concerns, we try and solve it. Otherwise, we shelve those indicators and ask them if they can produce it at a later time when they are able to produce it. Now, after submission of their baseline data, we draw a line across the 30th of September 2013 and said this will be our baseline. Everything else will refer back to 30th September 2013. After they submitted their data, then we called them one-on-one and had another round of consultation. This was to confirm the data authenticity. We then compare given data with whatever they published in their annual reports. And then we also sought clarifications on the data that they were not able to provide. Why didn't they provide it? Are there some legislation restrictions and so forth? And if they can be providing it in the near future. Also, throughout the design of the system, there was lots of capacity building for the TEF and technical team and the ministry personnel so that we can sustain the system. And also to the respondents from the various operators, familiarizing them with the input portal and also encouraging them to have processes drawn internally. One of the things that we were concerned about was that the reports does not reflect Tom, who is reporting from operator A. So if Tom leaves and Harry comes to take over, Harry is supposed to be able to take the ball up and run. So we encourage them to have these systems in place. Who are going to provide technical data, who's going to provide financial data, and who's going to sign off on all this before they send it to TEF, because when TEF asks back, we are going to ask through the channel. And if the top man does not know that this data was provided to TEF, it will be a big risk to those that are supplying us the information. So we try to get them to have all those processes drawn up internally to allow smooth transition every time. There was also this TEF technical team and management where we went through how the data will be interpreted and translating the information derived into policies that can stimulate growth, improve quality of experience for the consumers, and also attract investors. Our monitoring and evaluation system has 7 sections. A will be the report from the licensees. B are the household, education, and business sector reports, which we'll be getting from the NSO. C is on investment, local and foreign, and we are working closely with Investment Fiji, the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and our border control to see how much phones, how much IT equipments are coming in, and so forth. There's also the consumer complaints from the 2 consumer bodies. We are collecting complaints from the data from the operators themselves. We are cross-checking with the complaints that are coming through the regulated consumer bodies. Section E is on annual inspection, where we go out and validate. If they're claiming we are reaching as far as X islands, we then go and check if the signal level there is whatever that we have set in their licenses. And we also check on compliance. F is on universal service, soon to roll out. Since it's a politically sensitive project, we have decided that once it starts, we will keep the data separate so that when it's required, we are able to provide it readily to the policymakers. I mean, it will impact coverage for the operators who will get the to roll out the services in the rural. But on top of that, we need to keep it separate because of its politically sensitiveness. And likewise, Section G is on our county-wide report, the one that we publish on our on our website, and everyone can have a view. The portal, there are 2 sets of indicators, ITU indicators and the TAF ones that we created ourselves. We also have the tracking table so that we can be measuring comparing apples against apples. When something changes, we need to indicate that in the tracking table that from this date, this apple Y ends and apple Z starts in comparison. Database management is done electronically through our website that has got secured access. It's at the moment hosted externally. We are hoping that we will get it into our backyard soon, but the database is stored internally. They're able to look at their historical data. Although the respondents, they're able to look at their historical data. They can go back to what they submitted the previous quarters and make comparisons from there. I believe after 5 years we will be archiving them, but that's something that we will be relooking at if our storage is big enough. On the reporting, it also provides a reporting mechanism generated electronically, which we can then forward to management every quarter. And it also has a section whereby actions to be taken from findings are also recorded. So we can keep track of whatever that has been decided by management, that actions need to be taken against or to improve something, we need to keep a record of that. Now the submitted data, once they submit the data, we check if all compulsory fields are filled, compare with the record trends, the trend from the last few submissions, and then we verify from other printed data that they have already put out. If discrepancies are found, we go into dialogue again with the respondent and make sure that they are giving us quality data. After that, we compile the report, and then at the end of the year, the accumulated data for the sector are then submitted to Ministry in readiness for the questionnaire that comes so that they can submit to ITU. The system itself, I've just put up some captures on the TAF website. There's a section on monitoring, which has got a few tabs on it. There's a country report. You can go in and you can check our country report. Latest one will be printed. We have an input pro forma that is for the operators to put in their data. Our M&E coordinators page, and then we have the indicators. On the indicators, we have the two separate indicators, TAF and ITU, and we also have the definitions included, so that when they are a bit confused, they can go to this and see for themselves what is being measured so that they can provide the actual data. And there's also some presentations from past workshops that we have had. On the input pro forma, if I can just go in, there's a login page, and this is just a peek into it. Fintels, input data, so they can select whatever quarter that they would like to review, and once they click on it, they view data, and it'll be populated. The leave blank spaces, those are the ones that will be filled in once they submit. Then the existing data will then calculate what goes on to those other fields. And this is just a snapshot of the country report that we produced for the April to June quarter this year. This is on our website, and you can all view when you check it out. Basically, this is the end of my presentation, and I'd like to thank you all for bearing with me.
Thank you, Johnny, for sharing your practices on monitoring and evaluation system, as well as the framework and the process and approach that you undertake for this particular subject. So may I request the speakers to please come in front for the Q&A. We'll have about 15 minutes of question and answer and sharing. And if we have time, we can show on the screen again the points that were identified by all right, so while SD, okay, so we have the questions for the roundtable on the screen. But before that, are there any questions? Susan, please.
Thank you very much. I'm also very happy to be on the other side. I have questions for the non-ITU speakers. My first question to Australia. First I would like to thank all of you for your really interesting presentations, and for us it's also always very, very good to hear what's going on in the countries. So I really enjoy these kind of presentations. I have one question for each of you for Australia. You mentioned at the beginning the issue of data collection for domestic policy purposes, which I think you also emphasized, and I think it's a very important point. I was just wondering, how do you define it then internally? How do you decide basically what are your priorities and which data you want to collect? So is that part of your informal consultation? Is it the ministry who says, I want to know about this, so collect that? So if you could share a little bit, maybe I'll ask the question for all and then later we can go to the answers. But I'm interested to hear about how that process takes place in terms of deciding what to collect. Then for the presenter from the Philippines, that's really a very, very good example of a more formal coordination mechanism. So I think that's something that could be a very interesting also for other countries to look into how that is being done. And but my question is about something else. It is about you presented the different priorities in terms of ICT statistics, and one of it was, for example, measuring ICT and gender. And you talked about the data collections. What data are you collecting to measure ICT and gender right now? Because from what I understand, the ICT household survey hasn't been carried out yet, or what is your plan? What are your plans in this regard? Because I think this is one of the gaps on the data dissemination, but then at the same time you say measuring ICT and gender is one of the priorities. I'm curious how that is being done. Then for Fiji, that's a very interesting system. I think it will be very popular with all the participants here who don't have a system, who will probably want to know how you did it and if they can do it too. But my question for you is more coming back on the coordination side, because you also disseminate data from other stakeholders, from the NSO, ministry and other sources through your system. So you must have some way of coordination or interacting concerning the ICT statistics. And since this is one of the subjects, I would be interested in hearing. And then finally, if I could just mention, I know that there are other countries that have also very good coordination, for example, Thailand, who are also in the room. So maybe they would also like to share this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Maybe we can ask the other participants if they have similar or other questions, and then we'll have the answers from the speakers. So I promised Bangladesh that I'm going to call in.
Thank you. Actually, I'm very upbeat and impressed to see the presentation presented by all presenters, including ITU as you have brought this issue to the light, coordination, which is very important to maintain and to achieve the quality of the statistics, because number of agencies produce huge data, and sometimes it is authenticated by the National Statistical Organization, sometimes it doesn't. That's why coordination, there is no alternative than coordination. Actually, in my country, I was responsible and I was assigned to prepare NSDS, National Strategy for the Development of Statistics. It was really a Herculean task for me because I had to go through a lot of documents, international and national, and go through a number of agencies to examine their capacity, capability. And finally, we agreed some of the organizations who produce data, they are included in the NSDS directly at the first phase, although we have a plan to include them, include all of the agencies who produce data phase by phase. But we have 9 agencies at the first phase. Unfortunately, Ministry of ICT has been missing from there. Maybe it is the lack of concept of mine. Even we have written a number of letters to all of the ministry agencies to be included in the NSDS, but we didn't have a good response from them. However, later on we will include them, and I think this is the best formal way to maintain the coordination among the agencies for any kind of statistics, for producing any kind of statistics, of course including ICT statistics. And so once again, thanks the ITU to brought this issue here. And I have also some, I don't like to say queries, something to know, like Dr. Shushan. Australia has mentioned that existing government policy available to their country, they are using this for maintaining the coordination, and also they don't bother data collection specifically. So if you make it a little, how do you do this? Although your country has a very world-class statistical organization, I like to say one of the apex, ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics. And thank you, Philippines. I think really this is one of the best models which you can also follow. And one question to Fiji, beyond this workshop might be, you have mentioned in your presentation that your population is 837,000, but you have a tourist 600,000. It's really very impressive. I like to know that whether all these tourists are international tourists or you have included the internal tourists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bangladesh, for your sharing your experience in your country, as well as the questions which will be answered by them later. So can we have Fred, please?
Yeah.
Fred, and then
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, I join my fellow colleagues in acknowledging the very good and informative presentations. I'd just like to put some points on the topic of coordination because that's quite important and crucial. We've heard from SP on the fact that it's cross-cutting, and this is quite true. And we're very impressed with the Philippines efforts in actually doing an inter-agency committee that involves all those agencies that are involved in the statistics because it's cross-cutting. And of course with Fiji, Australia with their structure, and with Fiji with trying to harness the power of ICT. I think this itself can form the right ingredients with cross-cutting and coordination by having some kind of interagency efforts to a structured method of coordination, and 3, harnessing the power of ICT. maybe I would like to ask a question to ITU. Because of the fact that we've seen these efforts at the country level, how about at the international level with agencies, with the involvement of UNESCO, Health, WHO, because all these organizations also collect statistics. And one experience we see in the countries is this, what you call, demarcation of these, what you call, requirements that confines some of the ministries to prioritize that, but in fact when it's cross-cutting, it makes a lot of sense when we work together. So that's probably my question, and maybe I would like to see if there is some similar and equal efforts at the international organization.
Thank you very much, Fred, for the point that you raised and the question. Lau, please.
Right. Good morning again. That's from Laos. All right. Before I lay the question, that I would like to give you a brief overview about what Lao methodology that we are doing today. I mean, so far that I would say like a three overview about three categories. That's about what we have done and what we are doing and what we're going to do in the future. So far, that's in Lao also, I want to say that this way, Lao also that we collecting the data, the ICT data from operator, and then to that is not enough yet because of the you to have our own form, own requirements in the domestic requirements so far. But in terms of the missing with the international status requirement, that is something else, another topic that we, another issue that we're collecting for. So during what we have done in that, we seem to facing some issue as well about the process in there, and then when we have international requirements like the ITU indicator index, we are also fighting with the understanding on indicator until I have been here to a couple of days, as I don't know from you guys. And that's what we have facing for. And what we are doing now is we try to improving our statistic to be tied to be systematically lay platform on it. Since so far we also request from the international support like the ITU as well. And hopefully that's we're gonna have better in the future. I mean, and of course in the future what we're going to do just be just adopt and adapt into the international states. And this is the Lao, we the status of the statistics so far. And then I would lay the question to the Fiji. The Fiji seems to good sample, good structure for us to allow. We try to do something like have a modernized statistic. We also internally discuss about the way to go, and then that means my question is when you have done like that, I want to know about the issue that you have facing before you lead to get to here. I mean, because if we are doing this, learn from our participants who have been facing problem. For example, like Australian also tell us about the challenge, like the challenge there about the financial, or about the new technology, changing, maintain the quality of the data, or policy conflictivity, and also the some other issue. That is good thing that we have learned from. Otherwise, that we're gonna have very good concept to idea to planning to improve our statistic modernizing. Thank you. That's from us.
Thank you very much, Lau, for sharing your practices as well as challenges and also your question. So I'll stop here at this point first, okay, and ask each of the speakers to respond to the questions from Susan, from Bangladesh, from Fred, and from Lao. Okay, shall we start with with Jeanette first, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan, for raising that question. I actually was supposed to discuss that in one of my slides and it went off my head. Inter-agencies coordination. One of the slides I showed where we collect data from and who do we report to. Under TAP's mandate, we are mandated to collect information from our licensees. But we are using the ministerial links to get the information from the ministries that are providing data. Ministry of Trade and Industry, Statistics Office, and so forth. So education and health. The Ministry of Communications through their permanent secretary and the director sources that information and then passes it to us. For the other regulatory agencies, we have signed MOUs with them. On the other hand, we have the ICT Statistics Working Group groundwork that has already been done. Since 2012, our CEO left, so none of these works were able to go forward. We have been, running around like a hellish chook since then. Hopefully now that we have an established government in Fiji, that we may be able to make this appointment soon. But this ICT Statistics Working Group was supposed to bring all the stakeholders together and informally discuss and look at ways of how we can improve on this. We actually took it upon ourselves because it was part of something that we were mandated in our promulgation that we can form. So we decided we will formulate it first for the ICT sector and hopefully other sectors can follow suit. We've already spoken with the NSO and likewise with a few other organizations that will be involved in this, and they are already looking forward to it rolling out. In case of the question from our Bangladesh representative, yes, all the tourist numbers that are normally put out on the information page for Fiji are the external tourists coming into Fiji. Last year they managed to go well above 600,000, and they are trying to improve on it again this year. And it raised something, one of our concerns, like the high turnover of SIM cards. When they come in, they purchase and they use for a while and they leave it. And we were thinking that it will impact our statistics. So what we did was we also issued a legislation which says that after 3 months period, after one SIM card ceases to be in function, it has to go into quarantine for a period of 6 months. So that report cannot definitely come, in the last 3 months period. It was an issue that was that we found out. So we decided that our quarantine period for numbers will have to be 6 months for the SIM cards on phones. So it was something that we tried to address, especially for the big tourist influx of tourists coming into Fiji, that we tried to address at that point. In regards to my friend from Laos, actually, the issues faced, there were quite a few of them. As I've already mentioned, the early departure of our CEO, he was just 8 months into the job and then he went out. So most of our plans got derailed. That was one of the biggest challenge. The other one was on the staffing issue. As I've mentioned, there's only 4 of us actually that we can use on the M&E team. But luckily, when the World Bank funded our consultants, it really assisted us in get this moving. There were resistance initially from the operators, but through the consultation process, they managed to come on board. And as I've said, even before we demanded for the information, now they are starting to bring it in, and those are some of the challenges that we faced, but are now disappearing. At the moment, the other issue now was the action that needs to be taken from when the report that we send to management is analyzed properly. Some of the service issues were raised in our past 2 or 3 reports, but we have not received any mandate or anything from management on what action to take or what policy direction will we take to address them. So it's something that we even at the operational level are quite, we are keeping our fingers crossed that they will come out and give us the direction on decisions to take and the things to improve on, so that they don't become challenges. They don't become challenges, but become our strength in the future. So basically, those are some of the challenges that I can think of at the moment. But I'll be happy to share with you if things come to mind again.
Thank you, Johnny. So maybe you can continue your discussion a bit loud during the break. Okay. Judy, please.
Well, so many questions, I think I've forgotten them. But anyway, Suzanne, you asked how in Australia the policy development directs, I think, the decisions about statistics. You said asked exactly how that happened. Was that right?
Yes, because you said it's we decide for domestic purposes.
Yes,
Besides,
Well, as you saw from the links in the presentation, we have a large number of existing collections, and thankfully the Australian Bureau of Statistics and the Australian Government through them have decided that they are a standard part of the Australian statistical framework requirements. So every now and then there's a question mark placed over them, certainly the ones from the ABS, about whether we really need them anymore. And so at that stage, behind the scenes in government, there's a vast sort of lobbying process that goes on. I stopped to say, for those of you who've been involved in government at any reasonably high level, you will know that the making of policy is like the making of sausages. You just don't want to be too close to it. It's a very messy process, but we lobbied to maintain the existing collections. So they are part of the standard statistical framework for Australia, and they will not be lost. The question is how we decide to add new ones. And that is a good question, and I don't know about how policy is made in other countries. I know about how complex policy making in Australia is. The Australian public has a very strong voice, and it screams and rants and raves and sends letters, and there's huge presence online, and there's huge social media, and there's huge broadcasting presence and radio presence and bloggers extraordinaire everywhere. And eventually the government at some point decides that there's a policy issue about something that it needs to address. It's a democratic process, and it's messy, very, very messy, but it is very involving of many people, and at a certain point a government will decide that it needs to do something about something, and then at that point it will start thinking about data. I give you the example, for example, of e-commerce. I'll give you this example because it was a very interesting way of whether the policy led to a new data collection or not. You're asking me exactly that question. For about 2-3 years ago, and still up till now, there's a huge concern amongst Australian retailers that they were losing business because everybody was going online and buying from overseas, and the money was going somewhere else. So Australians weren't buying their clothes and their shoes anymore from Australian retailers and Australian shops. They were going online to New York and getting things sent from New York and Paris and what have you, and blah, blah, blah. And that there was this attempt at quantification of all the loss to Australian retailers of all this online purchasing from somewhere else, because Australians can do that and they have the money to do it, and the dollar is internationally a very well fledgling currency and it has a lot of power, pulling power, so people are buying online. Is this losing Australia internal revenue? Is it losing retailers? And retailers are going out of business, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the pressure on the Australian government was huge because the business sector was screaming and individuals were screaming, everybody was screaming, so what are we going to do about it? Now, no one really knew whether this was actually true or not. What they knew was that some big retailers were saying they were losing business, and very big department stores and what have you. And so there's a vast discussion about whether we need a new data collection which separated domestic purchases from e-purchases from online e-purchases, and whether that was even possible. And it went through about 2 years worth of discussion within government. And ultimately, they ended up saying that they were going to use an existing data collection through Treasury about retail purchasing, and they were going to try and split it between e-retail offshore and e-retail onshore, rather than creating a whole new data set. Now you're asking me how domestic policy is done, and I'm telling you how messy it is. And I'm telling you that it took 2 years to get to that point. And at one point we were going to set up, the poor ABS was going to set up a brand new data collection, a massive new data collection on offshore online purchases just for this purpose. And then we backed away from it. And how was that coordinated? It wasn't coordinated, it was a messy government process. But we took the advice of the ABS about how practical it would be, and we took the advice, I suppose, of a couple of other agencies in small business that said, well, we're not sure this is actually happening to that extent. So a range of sectors came, and within the Australian government there is a complex process of consultation amongst various different agencies, and they discussed it and ultimately we got to that conclusion. So you're asking me how domestic policy and therefore data sets are created or not. That's how it's done, but it's very complicated. And it's part of the Australian way of government. On gender issues, can I just say that all major Australian data collections, whether by the ABS or not, do divide for gender and have done for some time. All of them, by definition. They all have breakdowns by male, female. Yes, they do. I'm saying. You were just asking about the Philippines and the gender issue. I'm saying all of the Australian data collections have a breakdown, male, female. And many of them have other breakdowns as well, not necessarily ethnicity breakdowns, but Indigenous, non-Indigenous breakdowns, and often regional breakdowns, so locational breakdowns. That's part of policy as well. I can't remember the other question, Sasha.
Thank you, Judith. I would just like to beg your understanding. We're having a very interesting discussion here, but we're taking your tea morning break. But let me just continue for a few more minutes so that the other speakers can respond to the questions of participants. So can we go to Philip, please?
Thank you for the questions. Actually, I did not get the question from Amidesh. Perhaps, okay, thank you. So basically, I think the question is, came from Susan, right? On the gender, basically the plan is to include gender disaggregation in all the surveys that will be issued by our statistics authority. We have already included gender related questions in the survey for businesses, and I know when the Ministry of Trade and Investment conducted their own survey on e-commerce, they also included sex disaggregation. On the use of ICT for government employees, I think there's also some sort of disaggregation on the use of computer and use of internet and so on.
What about the household survey?
The household surveys, is a challenge because right now there are the household survey is being undertaken through different survey instruments, and I think perhaps because of the reorganization, restructuring of our Philippine Statistics Authority, the National Statistics Office and the National Statistical Coordination Board has been merged into one organization. So perhaps through this we can already incorporate gender in just one we can just have all questions related to ICT into one survey instrument. So that's the ideal situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Philip. And SB, please.
Thank you very much. The question regarding coordination at the international level, we do that through the partnership on measuring ICT for development, which was mentioned, I think, by Susan in her presentation, very first presentation. This partnership includes 14 regional and international organizations with the main objective of improving the quality and availability of ICT statistics at the international level, and of course, building capacity in countries. There are more information about partnership as well as the members that it currently has. You have a pamphlet, a small booklet outside that describes more about partnership. The only one which is missing from that list is the most recent addition, the most recent partner that joined the partnership, which is the ILO on labor statistics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, SB. Anyone would like to share the practice very briefly? Indonesia, please, briefly, please.
Thank you very much. In Indonesian case, data is still spirited between the NSO and any other statistic provider, data provider. So, for instance, there are many information in the ICT department, information and communication ministry, and also many information in other institutions like in association and in PPS. So that in order to disseminate the data, we collaborate the data. We make the special questionnaire. So we ask the ministry, we ask the association, and we also doing the survey directly to the business, like the ISP and the other. Any information about the survey also we present in the PPS website, so that many users could access it, but unfortunately the questionnaire still in Indonesia, in Bahasa Indonesia, not in English. But we present the publication also. When you look at the publication in our website, you could see, you search just using the keyword of the telecommunication, and then you will find any publication, any information about the questionnaire, etc. We also do the business in using the internet, also in household approach. But many information, because changes of the system of the survey, some information maybe will be collected only every 3 years for the household, but for individual we will ask every year. In coordination of the ICC statistic, I think like that, so we have the memorandum of understanding. So about the coordinations, how to be improved. Yeah, I think as Esperanza mentioned that there are commission. Yeah, it's I think too many commission right now in Indonesia. So in some cases, we just make it as the focus group discussion among the stakeholders. Like for instance, we have the data also on the SITS, Statistical on International Trade in Services, which is part of it is balance of payment. Balance of payment, part of it is also in the ICT sector. So we just have the focus group discussion. We made quarterly, but it's coordinated by the Central Bank of Indonesia because the information is there. So I think my suggestion is that the focus group discussion is much more important because it's practical. Yeah, person who engage directly to the activity, rather than we make the something like committee, or maybe what means by committee is the same as what I think. I don't know yet, exactly, but that's what we do in Indonesia right now. So we have the rule that anybody, any organization that presenting the statistic for public, they have responsibility to give information to BPS. So for the line ministry, they have to also give the one copy of the publication, while for the private sector, there are many in Indonesia right now. The surveyor, if they do the survey, then they present or disseminate to the public, and then they also have to give us the information about the synopsis. So the information about the where they do the survey, how the method, etc. So anybody could access that, and we present all information in our website, call it as the metadata statistics. So everybody could access it. So it is the way we disseminate our information. That's all, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indonesia. And we just have one last sharer from Singapore, please. Very briefly. Thanks.
Okay, I'm KK from Singapore. Let me share very briefly the experience of a small country. We conduct 4 surveys annually. The household survey, we outsource it to a vendor. Then we also conducted 3 company survey, Infocom usage for business, Infocom manpower survey, as well as Infocom industry survey that collects revenue of the companies. So what we do is that for the household survey, we do the proper sampling method, obtain the sampling frame from the National Stats Office, and then we, based on the sampling methodology we have, and then we outsource to the company and let them go and conduct the face-to-face interview. In general, we collect about 5,000 responses every year for the household survey. Household and individual. So household survey is 5,000, individual is another 5,000, so altogether 10,000 in that sense. So for the 3 companies survey, we in general about 4,000 plus responses for the manpower survey, for the Infocom usage company survey. Then for the Infocom industry survey is a smaller number due to the size of ICT companies in Singapore. So in terms of data quality, what we are doing is that we have a team that will do data verification checks, for example, missing values, and also sanity check, compare if we spot some problematic data, we will check also the previous year's submission, if any, and then if the number deviate a lot, then we will have the team to call the company to verify. So this is one step of data quality check. Then after that, let's say we have completed a few work, and then when we do the first cut of data analysis, the officer will also check through the data to see any data anomalies from basic frequency checks or whatnot. And then if there is any, we will again go back to the company and seek further clarification. Okay, this is the survey part. We also, because Infocom Development Authority of Singapore is also the license authority, so we will collect data from the operators on the admin data, some of those data we mentioned about broadband, telephone, etc. Then my team will also involve in compiling the statistic to be shared with the National Stats Agency on this admin data. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much for that sharing from a small, big country. Okay, so thank you very much for your participation. So we started with an overview from SP on national coordinations, and then we had 3 models here on the same subject. So I think we have a good mix of presentation in this session, and I would now close the session, and then we can have our break. Sorry, we'll have a shorter break this time. Please come back at 11:20, so you have about 10 minutes break. You can just please bring your coffee and your food inside the room. Thank you. I would like to introduce the chairman for this session. He will be a new face for you because we only have him for today. So the chairman for this session is Mr. Budi Yuwono from the Infrastructure Division of the ASEAN Secretariat. Budi, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's afternoon, right? Yes, great. I have the dubious honor to chair this session. And this session will be about the National ICT Statistics and Indicators portals that have been developed in many countries, including in ASEAN countries. So for this session, we will have 2 presenters, one from the Philippines, Mr. Ruben Tadina, joined by Mr. Flores Respino, and the second presenter will be Mr. John Ken from Microsoft International Organization Asia Public Sectors of Microsoft. He is the director here, and he's here, and we will share more some developments in the countries that have established the ICT statistic portals, some software capability that are provided by these portals. Without further ado, I would like to call the first presenter, Mr. Ruben Tadina, and perhaps joined with Mr. Respino.
Marina of the Philippine Information and Communications Technology Office. And with your kind indulgence, I would like to read my script since I'm not gifted with spontaneity. This piece of sharing of experience called the Philippine ICT Statistics Portal, from concept to reality. And we structured the presentation into 5 key components of the PICS portal project. And from the viewpoint of the project proponents, which I represent, I will discuss the conceptualization phase of this project, particularly the context and strategic frameworks that influence this initiative. And the technical component and challenges of the portal project will be discussed by our R&D partner from the ACA team. Measuring ICT development and ICT for development initiatives have been and still are greatly influenced by enabling policy environment and strategic frameworks at global, regional, and national levels. Well, I'll run some through key points and great points on them, such as I think we have the old version. Okay. So today's agenda, some key points are the formulation and elaboration of sustainable national strategies, plans, as an integral part of the National Development Agenda and the participation of ICT stakeholders in the setting up of national implementation mechanism. And at the regional level, ASEAN also developed parallel e-strategies and strategic frameworks for ICT sector, such as the ASEAN Framework Agreement, which promotes cooperation to develop, strengthen, and enhance the competitiveness of the ICT sector in the region. It also promotes cooperation to bridge the digital divide within individual ASEAN member states and among AMSS. It also facilitates the establishment of ASEAN information infrastructure and promotes the use of ICT applications for the delivery of government services. And for the current framework, it's the ASEAN ICT Master Plan, launched in 2011 at Terminal 11 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is also undergoing review to update the ASEAN ICT targets. At the national level, the following enabling national policy frameworks were instrumental in measuring and monitoring the advancement of the ICT development and ICT for development programs of the country. The GISV, which was earlier presented by Director Barilla, the Philippine Government Online, the envisioned an electronic bureaucracy that is widely and readily accessible to the Filipino people. And we have the Philippine ICT Roadmap, the predecessor of the current Philippine Digital Strategy, which outlined the guiding principles for the use of ICT for socioeconomic and development in the Philippines. Today, the Philippine ICT policy environment is posited on the mandates of the ICTO under Executive Order number 47, series of 2011, and on the Philippine Digital Strategy, a strategic national framework that looks at how ICT can make a difference in key areas of government and governance. Consistent with the national agenda on ICT development, the Philippine statistical system crafted its development indicators in harmony with the MDGs, mindful that the said indicators and database best respond to collection and dissemination of statistical data for informed policy decisions, especially with technology partnering with information itself. With the present policy direction emphasizing the need for evidence-based policy formulation, evidence-based monitoring, the ICTO has responded with the proposed customization of a database platform to address the measurement gaps in the national database for the ICT sector. The platform we have aspired to create was the PICS portal, a dedicated website for the production, storage, and dissemination of ICT data. The portal diagram and the national database window illustrate the relationship between these two platforms of measuring ICT development. The PICS portal will support the data gathering on industry or the ICT indicators that the national database cannot provide. With these requirements, the PICS was defined as the information database system, both production and dissemination database systems, for effective storage and dissemination of information and communications technology statistics that can be used by the different agencies involved in the collection and dissemination of this data. So we have adapted the coordinate indicators identified by the ITU. The PICS portal would have the following number of indicators in the respective applications of the project, such as the ICT infrastructure and access with 10 indicators, ICT access and use by households and individuals with 12 indicators, ICT access and use by enterprises which has 12 indicators, the ICT sector and trade in ICT goods, 4 indicators, ICT in education with 8 indicators, and ICT in government with 7 indicators. Indeed, this portal is an opportunity for sustaining ICT measurement as the portal initiative builds on relevant WSIS action lines, especially from C1 to 7 and C11, which is the regional programs. Briefly, the C1 refers to role of governments and stakeholders in promoting ICT 4D. The ICT infrastructure essential for the foundation of an inclusive society, access to information and knowledge, and the capacity building, and especially C7, which is ICT applications, which includes 8 applications, including e-government, e-health, etc. The realization of PICS portal would not have been made possible without the support and cooperation of the network and interacting government agencies and the development partner of the ASEAN, the ITU. The significant timelines of the project include, I read out from August 10, the ITU workshop on Philippine stock-taking assessment was conducted, and on May 2011, the office order creating the CICT working group on statistics. We note that the working group then was under the Commission on Information Communication Technology, which is the predecessor of the current ICTO. And August 2011 marks the start of the PICS portal project with ITU and NSB and the R&D partner UP ITBC. On July 23rd, the signing of memorandum of understanding between ICTO and CD on the use of the IT solution IPC Axis statistical software was signed, or was held. August 2012, special order, the creation of the Philippine ICT Statistics Data Producers Team was signed. And for the technical and nitty-gritty details of the project, I'll call our partner, Teddy.
Hi, good morning. So my name is J.R. Espino. I am from the University of the Philippines. Now, unlike most of you are from the regulators, the statistics offices, I have actually no prior background on statistics other than the stat courses I took in college, which I had to take twice. So I must say I got a newfound appreciation for statistics coming here. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Now, I am going to talk about the design and implementation of the stat portal. So just a background on where I'm actually from. So I am from the UP. I am a software developer from the UP System Information Technology Foundation Incorporated. So we are a non-government organization focused on the application of ICT for development. So we usually partner with the university for providing different ICT services, including software engineering, which is what we did for the stat portal. So there are a few questions you need to ask whenever you're designing a new system. And one of the first ones is, who will actually use it? So we have identified 3 primary users of the stat portal. Of course, there's the general public who has to be able to search for the data and browse the portal for other relevant information. Then we also need the data producers. So this could be people from the regulator, from the ministry, from the statistics offices, who should be able to submit their data for publication and submit it in an easy and efficient manner, and also update existing statistics. Then, of course, we also have the system administrators who will actually do the management of the submitted data and perform other management duties. Now, how do we display statistical data? So, creating a website is fairly easy work, but in order to present statistical data in a very interactive manner, we had to look for a specific engine to use in order to do this. And what we found is PC Access Software. Is anyone here familiar with this? So it's actually, frankly not. It's actually owned by Statistics Sweden, and is used in fact by over 50 statistical agencies and international organizations. So you can check out their website for the list of countries, mostly Nordic countries, but some already from outside are already using it. And it's a very widely used statistical engine for presenting data. It's free to download, which is why it's a good thing, but it requires a license whenever you want to use it to actually disseminate data. It uses its own file format, aka the PC Access file, in representing statistical data. It's just like a text file, but fortunately, the software suite itself includes various software for converting your typical Excel data into these particular file formats. So what are the system components? The specific architecture or a high-level architecture of the portal. So of course we have the production and dissemination database. We had to separate them into 2 in order to ensure that data being produced is in a separate database compared to the actual publicly accessible data. And then in the middle we have the application layer, or the application engine, in particular run by PXWeb, which is a component, one of the available features of PC Access. And then we have the actual portals, the production, management, and public portals. Later we'll see what are the differences in these 3 types of portals. Now we go on to the deployment of the portal and the trainings that we conducted. So earlier I mentioned that if you want to use PC Access for disseminating data over the internet, you'll need a license for it. Fortunately, Statistics Sweden requires only 1 license per country. And fortunately for us, the Philippines already had an existing license with the NSCB. So what we did was to sign a memorandum of understanding with them, so between NSCB and DOSDF, ICTO. This is the current setup of the system. So we're using the PXWeb version 2008. But right now, last I checked, I think they already released a 2014 version. So if you're exploring to develop your own, you might want to check that out. The system itself is running on a Windows Server 2008 R2 operating system, running IIS 7, some other technical configurations. And now I'd like to present to you the statistics portal. It's accessible online at fix.icto.gost.gov.ph. And here we have a few screenshots. So you have the landing page where you can see statistics trend and tidbits on ICT statistics. The core of the portal itself is in the second section, which is ICT statistics. This is the one that's running on PXWeb or PC Access. So we'll see later what you can see when you click on one of those. Then other pages include ICT indicators. So this is just an information page on the core ICT indicators. Then we have ICT trends. We can also put maps, so interactive maps on the portal. Frequently asked questions, and of course, an About Us page. Now, for data to be published, we go through four easy steps from production to publication. So the first step is that data producers have to request the system administrator for permission to upload new data. So they do this through the production portal. So for example, the data producer has the raw data with him, for example, in an Excel file or something. He goes online and makes a request for a data stub. In the portal, we call these data sets as data stubs. So that's one of the terminologies we're using. So the data producer just makes a request. The system administrator then has to approve this request. So this is done now via the management portal. So as you can see here, we have the content mobile cellular subscriptions requested by the data producer, and then the administrator can then reject or approve it. Step 3 is for the data producer. So once approved, the data producer can now upload the data in PX file format. So from Excel, we typically have to convert it to PX file. This is also done through the production portal. And once the data producer is happy with the data uploaded, they can submit it for approval, the third button on the right. And the administrator will then be notified, so the admin can then review and publish it for dissemination. So we have a confirmation here. Are you sure you want to approve the latest update for this data stub? And once published, anyone who goes to the public portal can now search for that particular statistics and interact with it using the PXWeb engine. So this is typically what data on the portal would look like. But it offers a lot of features, so you can download it as a raw PX file, an Excel file, an XML format. You can rotate the tables. You can make summations. You can even make charts and graphs from it. If you have an updated version of PXWeb, there are components that allow you to present it in a map. So it's quite an extensive engine for displaying statistical data. For the trainings, we conducted separate trainings for system administrators and data producers. The training for data producers focused on the conversion of existing data, so typically in Excel or sometimes written, hard-coded data, to PX file format using available tools from PC Access. Now for the challenges and next steps, moving forward with what we've done so far. For challenges, the first one is, I think we've heard this over and over again for the past few days, consistent data collection from various agencies and data sources. The second one is adherence to available standards and conventions in data production. We already have the ICT framework, the statistical framework, but the first two are actually hand in hand in making it difficult for us to adhere to the conventions, because without the data, then we won't be able to adhere to them. And the third one is, as with most systems, the capacity building for system administrators and data producers. As we saw earlier, we can't just upload directly from typical data sources like Excel or other formats. We need, since we're using a specific engine for this, we have to train them to use PC Access and convert them to PX files. Moving forward, we have to encourage agencies to regularly submit data and also explore other data gathering models. So as I think we heard earlier, if we're not getting the data that we need, perhaps we have to explore what else can we do to elicit those data from the sources. We also need to improve organization of data based on established ICT statistical frameworks, provide additional trainings for system administrators and data producers, and system enhancements, so which include version upgrades, better usability. So usability refers to how the portal is, how people experience the portal when they're using it, because you can have a statistics portal, but if the people are not, but if it's not easy to use, then there's no point in actually putting up the portal, because only people from the organization will be able to use it. So we have to make it very usable. And integration with other web services, so in order to make the data transfer and coordination with other agencies a lot better, then we are hoping that one day we'll be able to integrate the existing portal with other agencies as well. So that's it for our statistics portal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben and Flores. We will accommodate questions later. We will allow all the presenters to present their materials. It's very interesting to see the presentation from the Philippines, and we have a convenience in accessing data for users, for decision support, for example, on the go from the mobile phone. That would be interesting. The next presenter is from the public sector. It's from the Microsoft ASEAN International Organization for ASEAN. He is the director. Mr. John Can will present the cloud services for statistical and indicators portals. John.
It's just 12 noon, so I think I can say good afternoon to everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today to participate in this important forum. And I am mindful of the fact that you've been at this for 3.5 days. And so I will try to keep my comments brief, lively, and hopefully a little bit provocative. And I look forward to engaging you in debate during the Q&A. I've been given the task today to discuss with you how cloud computing or cloud hosting of the statistics portal can be achieved, and whether it is something that you will want to consider as a body. So in approaching this, I had two choices. I could either take you through a series of slides and torture you, or I could, and then make my point in the end. Or I could make my point first, and then make you suffer through my slides. I've chosen the latter. So the question that I'm here to address is, why is cloud a good option for an ICT indicators and statistics portal? Well, the short answer to that is yes, it is. And it makes a lot of sense on a number of different levels. First of all, cloud hosting is more flexible and agile than on-premise hosting. You can develop, test, and deploy solutions much more rapidly in the cloud than you can in more traditional means. It's more elastic and scalable as well. That means if you are having a hard time predicting the amount of demand on the portal, and you might experience peaks where people are using it, it's elastic and it can scale. In most cases, at least with with regard to Microsoft's cloud, it's technology agnostic. You can host both licensed and open source on it. Heterogeneous data extraction is extremely important and very capable through the cloud. This is something that for the statistics portal, you're going to probably be doing a lot of consolidating of data from various different sources. And the cloud makes that a very flexible method for doing so. One of the best parts about it is the economics. Cloud services are usually a pay-as-you-go basis. So the more you consume, the more you pay for. And then finally, built-in redundancy. One of the things that a lot of the cities are looking at who were affected by the typhoon Diane is cloud hosting their data, because a lot of cities lost all their data when the typhoon came through. If they had hosted their data on the cloud, they would not have lost anything. So, but can the cloud be trusted? It's appropriate, I think, for Microsoft to be speaking today on the subject of trustworthy cloud. Security is something that has been a corporate priority for quite a long time. We've learned this the hard way. 15 years ago, one might argue that Microsoft was the laughing stock of the IT industry, because literally within 24, 48 hours after a release of our products, we were attacked and hacked. And so our journey in security really started when Bill Gates sent an email to every employee in Microsoft stating that we must make security and trust the highest priority for the company. And Bill predicted that computing would become an integral and indispensable part of everyday life. And the only way that we were going to be able to build consumer confidence was we needed to make a long-term commitment to what he called trustworthy computing. And so in 2002, Microsoft actually stopped the development of Windows in order to completely overhaul the code base with security in mind. This then led to the security development lifecycle, which basically comes down to building in and developing and creating code that has fewer vulnerabilities. And we still use the process today to build our own software, but also make this available for free to the entire IT community. And you'll find that a lot of companies nowadays who are developing software are actually using the SDL. And then finally, most recently, we've looked to the future, and we're evolving our long-term commitment to address new challenges and opportunities in the next decade. We continue our commitment, of course, on fundamentals and innovation and partnerships, but we're also expanding our global capacity to identify malware threats, and we're sharing this increased intelligence with the broader community. So it's hard to imagine, life just 10, 15 years ago when few people had cell phones, much less smartphones, and how we use it. Now we use the internet for our everyday tasks, and social media is becoming a primary tool for businesses and personal use. And technology made this possible by truly transforming every aspect of public and private life. And of course, we know that technology evolution will continue at an incredible pace. In the coming years, we expect and hope to see even more pervasive impact than ever before as more and more devices join the connected world. This is largely being driven by 4 trends that have been identified by Gartner and IDC. They include mobility, social, big data, and cloud as the four megatrends that are going to dominate the industry over the next decade. This, of course, makes the pace of innovation possible, increasing just by the virtual number of people adopting technology, and by 2025, there'll be 4.7 billion people online. Modernization is really going to accelerate, particularly in emerging markets, where we expect to see huge consumer electronics growth. Also, in terms of transformation, the increasingly connected world is also transforming how people will work. more of our work every day is done on tablets and mobile phones. So mobility is really changing the way that we interact with each other, with the internet, and with our various constituencies. And then finally, we also see transformation of business models that make broad-scale technology adoption not only possible but also practical. Advances in cloud technology will help organizations be more efficient. In fact, over the next decade, most data will move through or be stored in the cloud. So, adopting this kind of technology requires Adopting this kind of technology requires a modern environment, which creates a rich and complex computing landscape. In this modern environment, people will be able to access information and connect with others from any location and on any platform. The applications and underlying infrastructure are available when and where they're needed. You have a connected environment that extends from your own on-premise infrastructure to hybrid implementations and then fully online cloud services. Your organization's data is shareable and accessible in order to drive really effortless collaboration and efficiency for users. And an important point can be made here as well, that you don't need to commit 100% to cloud or cloud hosting. You have some cloud providers offer you the option to have cloud and on-premise in more hybrid type models. Of course, new opportunities in this computing landscape also make possible introduction of new challenges. By definition, a more open and connected environment creates an expanded attack surface that will become the target for evolving threats delivered by ever-growing and ever-sophisticated cyber attackers. So in order to take advantage of this and all the benefits of this modern environment, we also have to ask ourselves several questions. Can I allow people to access what they need while preventing the risk of data loss? Can I extend my infrastructure while reducing the risks for unplanned downtime? Can I make data more available to my own workers as well as the citizens while preventing a privacy breach? And then finally, can I continue to protect the new technology and assets from malicious software threats? So we see that many organizations are increasingly weighing the benefits of new opportunities against the corresponding cybersecurity risks. Defensive strategies have had to evolve in the face of a more sophisticated cyber attacker, and the old strategies of protect everything inside these walls have had to adjust to today's reality where organizations should assume a compromise is going to happen. In order to move forward, organizations need a holistic strategy that is purposely designed to mitigate and manage security risks so that they can focus more efforts and resources on driving transformational initiatives and achieving better outcomes. We believe that a solid foundation built on security fundamentals can help you achieve the right balance between security risks and opportunities for innovation and modernization. So this brings us to what we call a trustworthy cloud. So for people to move to the cloud, they must feel confident that their data and their services are secure, private, and delivered readily for the best outcomes. And it's our view that there are four main components to a trustworthy cloud. The first one, of course, is cybersecurity. I've touched on that a little bit, but security has to be built from the bottom up in a layered fashion that is resilient enough so that when attacks do happen, that you can recover quickly. Hopefully, the cybersecurity you have in place will prevent most of the attacks from happening. Second, we believe that privacy is an important part. The people who are giving you their personal information as a hosting provider, they need to know that you're protecting the privacy of their data. They need to know that their data belongs to them and not to you. And they have to be confident that you're not going to scan, index, mine, or use that data for any other hidden purposes, such as marketing or advertising. Compliance is another important issue, particularly for this forum. You'll have contributors to the portal and consumers of the portal who are from multiple countries and jurisdictions. So service providers also need to ensure that they meet the regulation compliance and certification requirements and keep them up to date. Standards also enable the interoperability and sharing of the resources in the portal as well. So adhering to things like ISO, EUMC, HIPAA, etc., all play a role here. And compliance also implies that your service provider will conduct regular audits. And, sorry again. And then transparency. Providing an appropriate level of transparency also contributes to the building of trust on the cloud. Some helpful actions by the service provider might include showing and mapping where the customer's data is being stored, showing the customer the source code for review, informing the customer of all changes to the data maps and to subcontractors, and finally making available a summary of the audit reports upon request. So fully transparent, fully welcoming people to come in and have a look. So in summary, every organization has a unique security strategy tailored for their specific environment, but we consistently see these 5 key areas as elements to an important security strategy. First, protect the cloud infrastructure with a layered security. Second, encrypt individual files, folders, and removable storage devices. Third, create persistent, secured connections and enable multi-factor authentication. Fourth, unify management with a single administrator console. And finally, proactively meet your compliance needs and ensure data privacy. So I'll leave it there and make myself available for questions and discussion during Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for making us aware of the key requirements of statistic portals, because sometimes security is overlooked and statistical portal may be the prime target for web defacement because there is a representation of a country. So yes, I think that's something that we can learn from John's presentation about the maintaining security, and also leaving the implementation of portal to third party, be it Microsoft or any other cloud providers, may be a viable way to go, because you don't have to worry about all these securities and scalabilities, and also you can get an economy of scale from the third parties. Anyway, that was interesting. 2 presentations. In the next session, we will invite the speakers to the panel board, and also we would like to invite Judith Winternitz from Australia that may have something to share with us on the issue of national portals. Please. Yes, thank you. Now, is there any questions, comments, or maybe share of experience, national experience that we can entertain? Please raise your hand. Yes, Bangladesh. Thank you. Bangladesh, yes. And then another at the back. Thank you.
Thank you for a nice presentation. 3 of the distinguished lecturers. my interest to cloud. Could you please go to your first slide? Then it will be easy to know something. Actually, yeah, could you please explain this four component: productivity, social insights, and platform? If you clarify detail, then I think it will be helpful for me. And the next question regarding in your presentation, we have learned about security matters because cloud ensures the strong security of data. Is cloud helps to publish statistical data or like that? That means what Philippines explained earlier, PCX is one of the best tools for publishing statistical data. Yeah? So this cloud can do something here also. Thank you.
Okay, just briefly on the graphic. This is Microsoft's view of the cloud. You have the cloud platform itself, which is the hosting platform, on which you build applications, solutions for productivity, you drive social networking, and then also you use the capabilities in the cloud to gain basically insights. So not much to it really, but that's just our view. So that's why it shows up in the graphic. And your second question is more related to, is the cloud the best way to host statistics? Do I understand your question correctly? Yeah, it is, because you have to think about this in terms of the contributors. In the previous presentation, there was the different kinds of users. You have a lot of organizations contributing data to it, and then you'll have a whole other set of stakeholders who will use that information, right? So if you were to put that into just a single on-premise data center, you end up with challenges regarding the capacity of what you've created there, and its ability to manage the demand on the system. And you actually have to create the physical storage space, whereas in the cloud computing concept, that data could be stored in multiple different locations. So it's a more affordable and economic way and an efficient way to manage large repositories of data. In fact, the explosion of big data now in the industry has been largely driven because of the flexibility, the scalability, and the agility of cloud computing. So you don't have to bring all that data into one place. You can actually have it hosted in multiple locations, access it when you need it, and then make it available.
Thank you. Next at the back, Peter. Yes.
All right, what was the trick? Technology. Thank you very much for each of the presentations. They were very interesting. Actually, before I ask my question, John, I'm not sure if I heard the question from Bangladesh correctly, but I actually thought there was another smart component to that question that was asking about the benefits of cloud as a publishing mechanism for database as well. I think that's what was partially also being asked, and whether there were benefits there, in which case maybe you do actually just want to talk a little bit about the collaborative aspect that cloud would introduce, particularly on a multi-jurisdictional basis, and the real-time component of statistic collation and statistic publishing.
I think you've just done it.
I get a commission from Microsoft?
It's a good...
Okay, on that, if you want to pick that up, because I actually thought that was a very clever question. I had a question for each of the presenters, just briefly. To John's presentation, you raised the issue of privacy. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that, because I would assume that with the abilities that an ASEAN portal for statistics brings, where I would hope that we're looking at both public and private data being sourced and being able to leverage off the strength of a lot of the private sector participants, such as the carriers, amongst others, but as we move into an Internet of Things world, also utility companies and so on, that actually there are some privacy issues there that become interesting very quickly, but that we touch upon statistics which we as a community really do want to be benefiting from in a very rapid form. So that's my question to Microsoft on privacy. To the statistics collection, you talked about the package that you're using, the software package that you're using. It is a proprietary package. It does require a particular download and usage. I know it's a fairly straightforward package. I just wonder if you think it's applicable for other ASEAN member states to all be using, and whether you see that as the package that should be being used across the member states. And then to our first presenter, I'm just interested, given the Philippines was the lead on some of the statistical collection, at what stage you are at right now. I appreciated you running through what's being done from the Philippines side. I'd be interested just, I might have missed that, I apologise. What statistics are out there that ASEAN can be leveraging from right now?
Shall I go first?
Please.
Okay. You raised an interesting point here, because privacy has several different aspects when it comes to cloud. You have the privacy of the people who are accessing your portal and your application, and what information they're giving to you in the process of actually interacting with your site. That's sort of one kind of privacy, and that could be privacy of citizens, critical information, things like that. And those privacy considerations need to be built into the system using things like data rights management services and other types of technologies, data loss prevention protocols, etc. But then you also have the issue of governments are going to be providing official data, and some of that data they may not necessarily want to give everybody access to, right? So it's really incumbent upon the service provider to work with that jurisdiction to ensure that it's very clear what data can be available and to whom it can be available. And all of that can be basically architected into the cloud service and ultimately into the portal. Shall I go on?
For the question on the PC access software being, is it really suitable for us? I think it could be answered by looking at what it actually offers. So first, of course, is the availability of features, that the wide array of features that it has. So we've only presented the PX Web, which is the web version of it, but there are actually a whole lot of other software that it comes with that you can use locally on your computers and can be distributed. It doesn't even have to be online. It can be distributed via CD or whatever methods you have. So I think that's one good thing to look at. Then, of course, another important thing would be since it's a well-established organization that's been around for quite some time, so there's already a big community supporting it, which of course if there are lots of other users, then that gives us enough support in case we encounter any issues or in the future, and we can help each other out in order to even improve the system. Because also, once you are, if I'm not mistaken, once you're a member, like a consortium member of PC Access, you're also invited to actually improve on the system itself. So it's not just you're like getting the proprietary software; you become a partner with them and become technically a part of it. Plus, I'm not sure, but you can actually, since no one raised their hands when they asked if they're familiar with it, but you might actually want to check, because in our case, it might just be the ICT sector not being familiar with it yet, but it's actually very widely used already in other in other sectors of the country. Like for example, agriculture uses this particular software engine for most of their needs. So might want to look at that. But I hope that answers that question.
Thank you for a question on how the ASEAN could leverage on the ICT indicators that the Philippines have adopted from the ITU indicators. Here the sectors involved are the sectors that would have data such as education, employment, and especially e-government are good indicators that could ASEAN adopt or the ASEAN member states could, or maybe they are adopting in their statistical data requirements. Did I get your question?
Yeah, that's helpful, thank you.
Can I just say something? I know the question's not related to me, but I would say something from an advisory position with regard to portals. We're very much in, I'm sure that Australia would be very much in favour of any regional portal if the governments chose to contribute to it. Completely up to the governments concerned. But I think that it is obvious that the governments concerned should only put up on a portal official data that they're prepared to have put up on that portal. And that shouldn't be data that's any kind of data. It should be data that's already existing and available to the country concerned. It shouldn't be brand new stuff that their own citizens have never seen before, because I think that would be quite horrifying. Since the data would have come from the country concerned already, I'm assuming, or many countries, I'm assuming, there would already be some form of storage of that data somewhere else, I assume. And then let me go back to the issue of country storage of data and tell you what Australia does, and it's only what Australia does. Australia has a huge emphasis on privacy and security for its government data. Huge. And the Australian citizenry would be in arms and revolt if it were considered that there were any breaches. In particular to the ABS, which stores census data from 1901 about every Australian that ever has lived, about every aspect of their life, tax data as well, and all that stuff. That is kept under absolute conditions of security, and it's kept within storage by law of the Australian government. It's not stored in the cloud. Now, the Australian Government Information Management Office is responsible for that kind of data storage, and as I mentioned to you the other day, or yesterday or earlier today, I can't remember, e-government is big in Australia, and so we have social security information and taxation information and Medicare information and everything else for every Australian citizen, also online and electronically, and that too is highly valued and is highly carefully stored. So there's a difference between your internal governmental information, which I assume is carefully guarded and stored, and a portal information, which could be on the cloud because that's already established, developed and official government statistics. I think those are two things. I think Australia would not go down the road of storage of official detailed government information in the cloud unless there were good reasons to do that, sort of raw information as it's being developed and all the rest of it. But once it's statistically already released in Australia, then it can be released elsewhere through a portal. My last issue about portals is that we've experienced in Australia with electronic online reporting about everything, as I showed you many reports available to the Australian citizens and therefore to the world electronically. But the best thing to do with those portals is to make the system that you make available the most commonly used one. Don't develop a new system. That's why we use Excel spreadsheets and stuff that's very commonly available to people. And they don't have to know about a new system or a separate system or develop a familiarity with a different system or something else. So programs and what have you may be specialised and may be very useful for particular communities within a country or indeed within the world, like statistical communities. But, for example, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which issues its data for humanity, as it were, will use the basic Excel spreadsheet to do so, because virtually so many people have Excel and understand Excel as a program. They won't use something very specialised or very complicated because so few people will be able to, even if they opened it, they would not be able to do anything. That's just a comment from Australia.
Thank you very much, Judith, for sharing the perspective of Australia. Yes, of course. Microsoft wins in either way because Excel is still used. It's either the cloud service or Excel, maybe other file formats. And I think the idea of cloud, you can also have government cloud services provided by the government. So it doesn't have to be a private sector providers, but it would be a national cloud provider that is sanctioned by the government. Is there any other questions? Yes, we have one at the back, two. Also, any more? Okay, please.
Thank you. Just a question about cloud. I really appreciate the level of maturity now that cloud technology has come to, and I think the security issues are probably better addressed now than before. One of the concerns probably is about the trust data that the producers do not want any further. And I'm not sure what's the policies of Microsoft and probably some other cloud providers, because this is probably assumed that the cloud data producer does not want this anymore, and therefore can be assumed that it can be used in other purposes rather than being actually deleted and erased from the cloud in any form. So can you just probably highlight that aspect, please?
You're referring to data that the producer doesn't want to have on the cloud anymore?
That's
right. Okay. As part of the service level agreement, the customer would specify those kinds of conditions to the hosting provider. So if there was data that you had posted or had contributed to the system that you didn't want to have anymore, I would assume that if you wanted it deleted, that it could. The problem is, once you publish data to the web, it can go anywhere. You know, so how do you control that? I'm not really sure that, you know, even if you wanted to, you probably could get it deleted from whatever database it's being stored in. But as far as where that data has gone since it's been published, you may not get the result you're looking for.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yes.
I'm from Vietnam and I have some comment, and the situation of Vietnam is similar to Philippines, so I'd like to ask some questions to Philippines. Yeah, nowadays in my country, Minister of Information and Communication have a responsibility to collect the data, include data of the state office, data of the enterprise, and data of household. In collecting data of enterprise and of household, we always always carry our separately survey 1 year. But we have to carry out overall survey with the data of three objects include state office, enterprise, and household. So we have some problem because nowadays we have not had a perfect indicator system of ICT. To be suitable with international standard and Vietnamese standard. And we also want to improve capacity by training and improve the method of collecting data by carrying out some projects. Yeah, with Philippines participant, do you need a foreign expert to help you, for helping you to set up from concept to implementation of your ITC indicator? And do you need foreign project or government sponsor project to do your mission of ITC indicator?
Thank you, Ms. Vietnam, for your question. First, we would like to know if we needed the foreign consultancy in developing the ICT data. As I had mentioned in the presentation, we already adopted the ITU indicators since according to our Philippine Statistics Authority, that's the standard, and it can be comparable. And the portal that we have, the portal project that we have shown you is a collaborative activity with the ITU and with our R&D partner, the Academy, which is local based. What we have is the licensed software, which we have with the NSCB from an MOU with the licensee, license provider, that is the Sweden Statistics, right? That's what we had when we developed the portal. Did I answer you substantially?
Thank you. I think in the ASEAN countries there is also the ASEAN Community Statistics ASEAN Community Statistics Systems Committee that share the experience across ASEAN countries regarding how to collect statistics. We were informed that the ICT statistic has not yet been collected or has been discussed in the committee. So that's something that ASEAN countries can propose to the SESS committee meeting, so that perhaps there can be a project with technical assistance, probably from ITU or probably from Australia, to build the capacity to collect these indicators. So there are platforms that we can use in ASEAN. I believe Vietnam has another question. Yes.
Sorry. Not from Vietnam. I'm from Samoa. And I'm Ronnie, and I'd like to ask a question to Microsoft. Thank you very much for that very encouraging presentation, and as well to the Philippines. But my question, probably I'll just tell you the challenges that we have in Samoa. And this is with regards to the using of cloud computing. I think the biggest challenge is having access to the internet. And this is not connectivity, but it's to do with costing of internet. And having a solution like cloud computing, it would even pose another challenge for us. So I was just wondering, what are Microsoft plans for small markets like us and very isolated? And And I suppose I'm looking at the financial plans. Are there any, or yeah, thanks.
What specifically do you mean by financial plans?
Well, not only financial plans, but in terms of because you see the economy scales is really small, and as I just said, that with internet accessibility in terms of costings, so hence the question with regards to finance. Right. I hope this is not.
Might have to help Peter help me with this one. With this one. I mean, there's two different issues you're dealing with. One is the connectivity issue. It's the cost of getting internet access to a remote island and having the appropriate amount of bandwidth, which is really a telecoms issue more than it is necessarily a cloud hosting issue, right? Now, cloud is still very appropriate for a country like Samoa because, setting aside the telecom costs for a second, the whole basis of pricing cloud services is that you pay for what you consume. So whether you have a large-scale operation or a small-scale operation, it expands and contracts based on numbers of users and the amount of processing capacity you require. So in a sense, I mean, the cloud could be something that Samoa would want to look at, telecom costs aside, right? I don't think we can really, Microsoft can't really address the issue of the cost of telecommunications in your country, but when it comes to the actual cloud services piece of it, there are ways in which we can work with you to implement cloud.
Do you want me to say anything to it?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Do you want me to speak to the mic?
So I think the question is a very good question. Obviously, if you don't have access, you're not going to be able to access. It's almost as simple as that. So the question then turns on its head to some degree. If the issue that the government, by approaching a statistical portal, database, or set of collated statistics, is approaching this from to say that we're now trying to use this to drive development, and actually the statistics that we are measuring and trying to not simply release but empower are everything from some of the stuff I heard Judy mentioning, where you're talking tax revenues, you're talking health reach out, you're talking issues of financial inclusion. If the connection is from statistics to national development, then you're going to be incorporating how you're reaching out to your citizenry and connecting with your citizenry in delivering whatever those services are. So the statistics are feeding into some other aspect of an overall national development plan, in which case, if you take Microsoft at face value around the benefits of the cloud, and that's something each economy would have to come to in its own terms, I suspect, you're going to be connecting the connectivity costs into what the services benefits are. And this is something that Australia, for example, went through quite torturously for a period of time. And we believe that a national broadband network is meant to deliver a whole range of other benefits. So we're building this to connect into the delivery of services, and therefore we're going to attach statistical collection to those delivery of services. And a number of countries are going through those exercises. But I think rather than seeing them as two separate components, you're now trying to interconnect them. I think if you do that, the question then to vendors or service providers, cloud service providers like Microsoft and Apple and Amazon and Google change, because then you're looking to get private sector potentially to work with you when you subsidise the connectivity piece around service delivery. So people may well, as we're seeing, vary things like data centre costs and data centre development. And I think that's partly where your question came from. Is Microsoft interested in working with Samoa to wear some of these costs over a longer term development cycle? And the answer to that is yes. But that's a conversation you have with someone like Mr. Can bilaterally, I suspect.
One last question, please. We are running out of time. Thank you.
I'd just like to contribute to that aspect there because of the challenge of small islands. For the small islands to get internet, they actually have to go to the site where the content is provided. And that bears a huge cost for the small islands. Where traditionally before, it's like we meet halfway in the traditional telecom interconnections. So I think that pattern is changing, and I believe Google has shown there where they put their local caches in the small island countries, so that the traffic actually is localized, and overnight during the time that the connectivity is more free than they do an upload, because the other aspect to appreciate is that the connectivity to the small islands is very limited because of the cost, and some of the countries actually within the same country have to do a double satellite hops, so it kind of compounds the cost. But if I believe, as he already said, that's probably some ways of bilateral that we can approach Microsoft and see how we can discuss this further, and we'll start looking at local cases. That's something good.
Interesting, yes. Thank you for sharing the food for thought. That will be an idea to pursue. And thank you for all the participation, because we are running out of time. We need to close the session afterward. Let's give a round of applause to all the panelists and also the participants. Thank you very much. I return the podium back to the owner. Please.
Thank you very much, Budi, for that very good session. We will now proceed to the last session, which is on conclusions and recommendations from this 3.5 days workshop. I would like to invite Susan to present the conclusions as well as recommendations.
Thank you very much, Amy, and I know everybody is waiting for lunch. But it will be very short. We have changed the order for the conclusions and recommendations because we have some participants from non-ASEAN and non-Pacific Island countries who will not be, or who may want to do something else in the afternoon, so they don't have to come back for the conclusions and recommendations. And this is why we are looking at them now. So we have prepared a few slides for you just to go through, and if you have any comments, you can of course make them. Okay. So we had a very rich discussion over the past 3.5 days. And we were trying to just capture a few points from the different sessions and the discussions that we had, something that we can sort of perhaps take away from this workshop. But we invite you to look at this, and please let us know if you have any comments. So first, let me just recall the workshop objectives that were presented by Aurora at the very beginning. These are to strengthen the capacity of countries in the region to collect, produce, analyze, utilize, and disseminate national ICT indicators and statistics, to have a better understanding of global and regional activities, the partnership on measuring ICT for development, ITU data collection, countries-related activities and initiatives, to assist countries in measuring and monitoring national and sub-regional ICT targets, to identify challenges faced by countries in coordinating and responding to ICT questionnaires, to strengthen and expand partnerships on measuring ICT for development, and to establish a regional network of indicators and experts. So this is the same that was presented on the first day. It's just to recall the main objectives of the workshop or of the meeting in general. So here are a few suggestions for conclusions and recommendations. And it will be structured in a way that we first look at the telecom data, and then at the household data, and then at some other issues that we discussed. So what we have observed in this region is that in terms of the response rates to the ITU questionnaires, they are mid to low in terms of level. We have 46% for the short questionnaire 2014, 59% the long questionnaire, and 10% for the price data questionnaire. And the response rates from the Pacific region are more towards the lower end. So here are a few recommendations of how these could be perhaps improved in the future. One is, we talked quite a bit about the statistical focal points in the region, or in the countries, I should say. And a recommendation is to identify, nominate, or update, in case the person is not there anymore, the focal points in the ministry or the national regulatory authorities. Then to compile data from the operators or internet service providers on a regular basis. I think this goes without further explanation. Also, a recommendation would be to plan in advance the data submission to ITU in terms of the looking at the dates when the questionnaires will be circulated. This is usually announced in advance. It's also available on the ITU website. To get in touch with the country focal points and to coordinate between the different national data producers. Okay. If you have any comments on these suggestions, please raise your hands. Here.
Thank you. Just to add for considerations only. I'm not sure if you probably address it in the next slides, but for point number 2 in the recommendation, probably as we see from the last presentations on harnessing the power of ICT, probably perhaps we can start using the word like empowering operators.
Empowering
the operators to put in the data.
Empowering operators?
Or data producers to put the data, provide the data. In the example that Fiji has shown, they did not have to wait for the data producer. In fact, they've done it in advance. So just a comment for your consideration.
Okay, so you would like to add something here? Can you please say what you exactly phrase what you would like to add?
Empowering or developing a system that empowers the stakeholders to provide empower data producers to provide.
Provide the data?
Yeah, probably you can improvise on that.
Okay. In any case, we can also improve the language later on. Right now, it's important to capture the ideas. Okay, then next one is concerning the ITU handbook and its editions, that this should be used as the main reference document for defining and collecting telecommunication administrative data. And we have gone in detail through those definitions. Then also for the ECTI, the Expert Group on Telecom ICT Indicators, so far, at least for the countries that are in the workshop, there is still limited participation in this, and therefore we encourage all of you to register in the online forum and actively participate in the discussions. This is also the best way to make further suggestions on the types of indicators that should or should not be collected, new indicators, old indicators, and so on and so forth. Any comments on this? Then we go to the household statistics. So again, overall, the response rate to the household long questionnaire has been, in 2013, has been 15%, which is on the low end, and to the household short questionnaire, 2014, 33%. Some household access indicators are available from the census round, and some data are available but are not reported disseminated. These are observations. And the individual usage indicators are not widely available in the region. So these were we distinguished between the household access indicators and the household and the individual usage indicators, and there are certain data limits when it comes to the individual usage indicators. So the main data sources and surveys in the region, some countries, usually those that are more advanced on the ICT data collection, they have standalone ICT surveys, and others use multi-purpose household surveys for adding or including ICT questions. Here are some recommendations. Countries are encouraged to collect ICT household statistics, at least for the basic indicators. These could be added to existing household surveys. For those countries, of course, who don't have already a standalone ICT survey or who are not planning to have a standalone ICT survey in the near future. Then, similar to the other set of indicators, countries should identify, nominate, or update the statistical focal points in the national statistical offices who would provide the data to ITU. And those should then report the ICT-related statistics regularly through the ICT household questionnaire, which is sent to focal points in the NSOs every year. And we also suggest that in the questionnaire to complete also for the years where the information is available for at least one of the core indicators. Because often, if countries, they get the questionnaire and then they don't bother even if there's only one indicator available, and for sure the indicators on households with telephone, radio, TV, they should be available normally in all countries because this has been collected for many, many years. So even if that is only available, it would be good to fill it out and send it back, because that will also help to disseminate the information which is otherwise not available. Any comments on this?
Just a simple one. I think in the recommendation,
would it be better to include things like this? Can we recommend that there should be regional workshops just as we have today?
We get to capacity building later on, so maybe you can make your comment then there if it's not yet taken into consideration. Okay, thank you. Other comments? Then let's move on. Other recommendations, similar to the one on the telecom administrative data, the ITU Manual for Measuring ICT Access and Use by Households and Individuals 2014 edition should be used as the main reference document for defining and collecting ICT household statistics. And experts from countries are encouraged to join the EGH, the Expert Group on Household Indicators, and its online discussion forum. Again, similar to the other one, this is the one where you can exchange experience with other countries and share best practices and also make suggestions in terms of future work. Okay, next, national coordination. This was this morning discussed. So here's a few suggestions. ICT data collection and dissemination involves a number of different stakeholders at the national level. And we have also heard that there are best practice examples of coordination on ICT statistics in several countries of the region. I think this was clearly came through this morning, and these are good models that could be looked at. Then, as a recommendation, that coordination among ICT ministries, NRAs and NSOs should be enhanced in countries in order to improve the ICT data production and dissemination. The NSO should play an active role in this regard and could work towards including ICT statistics in the national the national strategy for the development of statistics. So that's I think that was a very good point that was mentioned this morning, and it could be something that could help to have also a more sustainable data collection in the country. Then, for example, national coordination mechanisms could be established in countries, such as we have heard about the example of the Philippines for the Interagency Committee. This is just one example which brings together regularly all the stakeholders involved in the ICT statistics production to discuss data priorities based on policy needs and manage and harmonize data production and dissemination. Are there any comments on national coordination conclusions and recommendations? Yes, please.
Sorry, it's me again. The use of let's call them ICT in the process of those mechanisms. I don't know if you like to add it or no, but you are dealing with ICT statistics, and maybe the methodology should also include ICT technology. So we've seen in the last presentations the use of portals, and also on regional international portals.
Portals we will also get to.
Okay.
This is more the coordination itself in terms of interacting with the different stakeholders that play a role in the production of statistics. So this is under other issues. We have put a few other points. I think there's another slide. So there's 2 slides on other issues. Okay. First, something more general, but this was discussed on the first day, that national ICT strategies and broadband plans should include measurable targets and indicators. Again, this is also the link in terms of linking policy priorities with the data collection priorities. Then, when we discussed the ICT Development Index, we noticed that a number of countries from the region, especially the Pacific Islands, are currently not included in the ICT Development Index due to non-availability of data, and these data gaps should be addressed through the suggestions that were made in the previous recommendations. Then a number of countries proposed additional indicators, while others proposed to reduce the number of indicators that are currently collected by ITU. Maybe I should add that here. Oh, different keyboard here. To a minimum necessary, and such proposals could be raised in the expert group forums. So we had some discussions about the length of the questionnaires and the indicators and which indicators. So if there are suggestions in this regard, it would be very good to bring that up in the expert group forums, because this is where then it can be taken up and followed up. Are there any comments on this? On these points? Okay. Next one. Okay, last one, almost last one. Then other issues identified. There is a need to further strengthen the capacity of countries in the region to produce ICT statistics. This should be addressed by ITU in cooperation with other partners in the future. So this is sort of the this is addressing a little bit what you mentioned. I don't know if you want to be more explicit on this, we can do that. Let me just go through the points maybe first. Then the next, we talked about data quality, and the recommendation would be ensuring data quality in ICT statistics is important, and countries are encouraged to apply existing national quality assurance frameworks in their statistical work. Then there's two on the portals. This was just this morning, so we have just added something here to also capture that in this list. Countries should explore the development of a national database system to collect and store ICT statistics. And national portals are a good way to disseminate ICT statistics, and countries may consider setting up such portals. Existing best practice examples from the region could serve as models in this regard. So these are sort of the overall conclusions and recommendations that we would like to just put as in a short summary here. Do you have any comments on this, on these points that are mentioned here? Yes, please.
Sorry for me again. Just the first one, I would like to make it become more, let's say, more possible to become realization, or easy to implement. So I'd like to suggest that we should recommend something like this. Regional forum annually. Thank you.
You organize it. We can say, this should be addressed in, we can say, for example, through regional workshops or something. Regional workshops. Okay. Are there any other comments on this? Okay, then the final is just, you don't have to copy those, obviously. We are going to make this also available on the site. And this is just for you as a reference for the different materials that we have discussed during the course of this week. Yes, please.
This conclusion and recommendation, I think need also mostly in some cases maybe need the time bound when it should be completed by a country or something like that. So there would be any increasing the effort.
You mean a deadline for everybody?
Not deadline, but maybe at least 3 or 5 years later or something like that. So maybe need something.
Yeah. Let's see how we can incorporate that, because of course it's different for different topics. You're talking about the data collection and dissemination mainly?
Yeah.
Because normally what we have here.
Because you said that that's also moved earlier when about the ITU data collection or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, which number?
I think we have it under the household. Countries should report ICT-related statistics regularly through the ICT household questionnaire sent to focal points every year.
Yeah.
Would this cover your concern?
Yeah, maybe, I'm sorry I couldn't read faster, so it's very difficult, but I found that this all of the recommendation is not time bound, something like that, so nobody. I don't know where it should be put, so I think it's also needed to do that. Because when it's time bound, then when in another discussion it will be referred by the government or by the activity, the association in the country.
So you are saying that this is too general, and it would be better to say in those countries where data are not yet produced, that that work should be started as soon as possible. Or it's difficult to have a concrete timeline because it's so different in the regions. We could say something as soon as possible, maybe, or because it requires a certain process to. And then also you have some indicators that could be collected. For example, if we talk about the household indicators, it's easy to add them in an existing survey. You don't need a year to establish an ICT household survey. You can just add questions in an existing household survey already. So the timeline would be different for that.
Okay, maybe I just want to add one thing that. Right now, as the NSO, we feel that increasing the respondent burden from many international institutions, including in UN, including in like WTO, in something that's so many. So the recommendation is we hope that it's not only on our side, but also from to the ITU side. So how to collaborate among the agency, so that the questionnaire is not coming too frequent, or maybe another method, so that all of the information needed by this organization could be collected in one time or in something like that. So I don't know how to do that. So we are among the countries should be collaborated, but why the international organization couldn't do that? So could collaborate something.
Okay, so you would like to add something on international collaboration. Is that the case? Maybe we can do that at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Because, other issues. Maybe at the beginning, because we talked about the partnership on the first day, the partnership on measuring ICT for development. Yeah, because I mean, on the ICT statistics data collection, there is collaboration. If you talk about WTO, WHO, of course, that's a different field. These are different types of statistics, and I don't think it would be possible to, or even meaningful to have a coordination when we are talking about different sectors. But in ICT statistics, I think that's definitely important, mainly because there shouldn't be any duplication in terms of the data collection. So we could add that.
May I say something there? I think this is related to what I was thinking that because we discussed this in the Pacific group, that there's in terms of housekeeping from the ITU side, that we would also like, because there's an issue there with focal point being, there's clarity between the understanding from the national side and the ITU side. And perhaps it relates to what our colleague from Indonesia has just said, that it's more to do with housekeeping from the ITU side, in terms of trying to fit in the national plans towards the ITU plans, so that there's more coordination from our end and your side as well. I don't know if this solves the.
But are you talking about data collection now from ITU side, or what are the ITU housekeeping issues?
It's more like some sort of like housekeeping follow-ups from the ITU side.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, the example here that I'm trying to get at is there's follow-ups from follow-ups and a lot of support from the ITU side.
So what are you proposing?
This way, the absence of the index classificados. The absence of the Pacific Island data from the IDI is probably a mutual responsibility that at least ITU could come to the islands very strongly and say, hey, you guys data are not here. So I think that kind of support, in that sense of collaboration and cooperation, so at the end of the time, there is data existing. So I think that's something we can work on together.
Okay, maybe this afternoon also
Yeah,
is specific. But let me just add maybe one bullet on the international data collection. So, does this correspond to Indonesia? Does this correspond to your proposal? Hang on, let me just change the font here. For the international coordination. Is this okay with you? Okay, any other comments? Okay, then I think we have reached the end of the 3.5-day workshop. So we still have some sessions this afternoon with the Asian group and the Pacific Island group. But I would like to take this opportunity already to thank all of you for your very active participation during this time. For us, it's very enriching to work with you and to have the direct contact and also hear from you about your real life difficulties that you are facing and also about the very many good things that you're already doing and we were not aware of. So I would like to thank all of you for coming to this workshop and participating very actively. I would like to wish those who are leaving us and not joining this afternoon a very, very good trip back home. I hope we can see each other soon again in the near future. First of all, at WTIS in Georgia. I would like to, of course, mention this again. And I would like to thank very much also all my ITU colleagues, SP and Wisit and Amy and where are the other colleagues, who were very, very busy helping to prepare this workshop and basically making it a successful event. And with this, I wish you a very good lunch and I'll give the floor back to Aurora. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susan. Maybe I should also add that we would like to thank our speakers for coming here. Thank you very much for your participation. And some housekeeping announcements. We have distributed or circulated a form, an evaluation form. So we'd appreciate if you respond to the questionnaire and then leave it on your table. The secretary will pick it up and for our purposes. We need your evaluation so that we can improve if any future related events that we're going to have. Okay, so I would now like to call on Mr. Direk Jaranpol, advisor to the NBTC, to say some few words in behalf of the host. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants and all of us here. You know, this event had a beautiful start some 3-4 days ago. Very good running for 3.5 days. Now it has to come to a close. Not a sad one, but I think a cheerful one from Dr. Susan had been inviting us to the next symposium. Looking at the time, there's a constraint that I should speak so many minutes, but give me a few one to thank everyone for all good event to all of us. First of all, I am not justified to be addressing at a closing ceremony, but assuming that sometime in the past, I was involved and engaged in a number of ITU activities from standpoint of Thai delegates and others. So allow me on that basis. As I said, the ITU had been working this as in Thai culture, saying that you are putting a gold leaf on the back of the Buddha statue. What is meant in Thai culture means that there are people who work behind the scene and have been visible and many times haven't been recognized, but their work was outstanding and their work was a kind of a behind the scene interwoven basis of involvement of the future. This is your work. Statistic data in telecom is well recognized and it has been used, but oftentimes we thought of it until someone come to a crucial point and say, where is all this about? And then we begin to think about it. And that's the nature of it. Anyway, it's important, it's significant, and it will remain with as long as ICT is with the world. So keep on going with it. Among all those people that we should thank, there are scores of them. And due to limited time that we are taking away from the APT parallel meetings, I would shorten them, but address a few names that we all recognize. First of all these speakers and main presenters today, including those of us who share the views, asking questions. But precisely of all these 3.5 days, I think we all recognize the good part of Dr. Susan Telscher. Dr. Susan, we all know of her position, we all know of her endearment and hard work at the ITU. That's no doubt about it. But here, in this stage, she had been a good professor, imparting good knowledge, encouraged us to ask and get involvement. The second one, her assistant, a second professor, Miss Esperanza Makpante. If I incorrectly pronounce your name, forgive me. She also had been a very capable associate, plodding along while we are going to sleep and keep on asking and listening. Miss Aurora Rubio, my own dear friend from the old days. We are not that old, but let's say old time. She has been a coordinator and make this event quite lively and very valuable. The last one on this list, Mr. Visit Atiyakun, staff of ITU Regional Office for Asia Pacific. And I think those of us from the islands probably know him very well. I don't know whether as a tourist or as ITU worker to help you in any way. I said it because I know he traveled to that area very often. And sometimes his wife come to me, I know the family. Where is my husband? I said, oh, on ITU mission. And Fiji Island and so on. He said, for holidays? Sorry. All in all, I think that is valuable event. Thai participant has been learning a great deal. In fact, we have been recognizing the importance of this. There's regulator, there's a ministry, there's also operators, and also academic. Now the effort is try to organize scattering data that are available here in Thailand, as you may know. And when we look at the ranking of Thailand in many aspects, we begin to realize that there are weak points in our data collection, data system, and all that. Now, the NBTC as the national regulator are compelled to start up and hopefully to try to be an axis of organized effort for Thailand. So you don't hear much from us today. We are learning, particularly myself. But we do hope that in a couple of years, when everything is in order, we should be able to share with you, participate with you more actively than today. Anyway, not taking too much time out of our stomachs. It's already 1 o'clock. I should end now with 2 thanks to all these 4 names and all others of today and the last 3 days. Some still here and some already disappeared. They all contribute a great deal to joint effort. ITU was to be about 150 years old, I think. 150, yes, that's what I said, next year. As we all know, the oldest international organization within the United Nations organization. I feel proud of them and glad for them because it is the oldest and the only agency, independent agency, that eventually was asked and invited by United Nations organization to be part of the family. That's rather unique. All other many organizations was created from UN. So we hope the spirit will go on. We hope ITU will go to the second decade, 200 years and beyond. I don't know whether all of us will be here, but anyway. So have a good trip, and we hope you have good stay in Thailand and Bangkok. Now things are quiet and peaceful now. Don't worry about anything. Whatever we did during the last year is only our internal business, and the data will not be disclosed. It's known, there's no need to disclose it. Anyway, we welcome you and thank you so much to have visited with us in Bangkok, even short time. Hope that you come around here, Thailand, for any occasion, any event, by yourself or by your organization. And the last one, thank you so much to the senior members and the ITU, particularly the regional office with the new director from Fiji. So, thank you.